Chapter 489. Jiang Yang was meditating among the flowers. He was Li Ruo's eldest disciple, and had always been by Li Ruo's side. When his junior brother met with danger in the cold wave, he specially followed his master here. Knowing that there was such a unique spirit domain, Tang Tian's train of thought immediately opened up a lot. To a martial artist of Tang Tian's level, lacking control over his power was something that should not happen. Separated by a wall, the flowers were blooming, the grass was dark green, and it was full of spring. Tang Tian did not think so much. It did not matter if Little Fool was powerful, the important thing was to find a direction. After all, he grew up from the current martial technique system. Even if it was a form spirit, it might not be the same as the ancient form spirits. His current strength was not weak. Compared to ordinary bronze saints, he was much stronger, but he had never found a new train of thought. This predicament stemmed from two problems. One problem was whether or not the zero energy body was already at its peak. Could it still be strengthened? His current strength mostly relied on the special ability of the zero energy body. The other problem was how to use Little Fool. Until now, his understanding of Little Fool relied more on Little Fool's own performance. Bing immediately displayed his professionalism. In the day, he had already quietly memorized the layout and environment along the way. Under Bing's guidance, Tang Tian found a corner with no one and quietly crawled in. What is this place? The training barracks were already built. Every class had their own camp and everyone settled down. They were extremely tired in the day and had been frightened for the past few days. Now that they were relaxed, everyone fell into a deep sleep. His eyes flickered with a green aura. He was extremely surprised. Such guts, to actually dare to sneak in when master and senior uncle were around. The training barracks was not far from ancient Cold City. On the way back to Tang Tian's camp, a few martial artists swept past his head. They did not conceal their aura, and one of them was a saint. It lowered its head and sniffed in front of Tang Tian. When Sister Ying returned, the ice bricks in front of Tang Tian were piled up like a mountain. Sister Ying was extremely happy, and let Tang Tian return to the training barracks to rest. Buzz. His movements did not have any sound. His control of the muscles in his body was extremely precise. Every landing point was like a leopard cat. His strong intuition and judgment allowed him to judge the danger in advance. Tang Tian guessed that this person should be Li Liangqiu's father, Li Ruo. However, he was afraid of arousing the other party's vigilance, so he didn't dare to take a closer look. He stretched out his palm and pressed it against the grass on the ground. The green light in his eyes burned brighter and his hair turned green. Saints were obsessed with controlling their power, and uncontrollable power was destined to be disliked by them. Pu piu piu. The big turtle glanced at him and turned to leave. Only then did Tang Tian notice that the big turtle's four limbs and saws were shrouded in black mist. Its movements were faster than Tang Tian had imagined. Instead of being slow and clumsy, it was rather agile. What do you think is inside? Bing asked expectantly. However, the sky was already dark, and it was time to explore the city lord's mansion. Along the way, he carefully avoided the guards and patrolling martial artists. Tang Tian finally touched the walls of the main courtyard and found a place to climb over. He was immediately dumbfounded. Suddenly he opened his eyes. What a big guy. There's a ghost. Bing sneered. It's such a barren land, why is it so heavily guarded? The big guy sniffed around Tang Tian, and the head formed by the black mist revealed a look of suspicion. The churning and floating mist was ever-changing, but it allowed Tang Tian to clearly distinguish its expression. When the saints of Ursa Major constellation knew that Tang Tian's spirit domain was a form spirit, they all held a cautious attitude. What martial technique is that? Back at the training barracks, Ding Chen immediately asked about the day's events, and Tang Tian then talked about the big turtle. Ding Chen said that the big turtle was called the fog turtle. It had a gentle temperament and had never hurt anyone before. But the origin of the fog turtle was something no one could explain clearly. His intuition was extremely sharp and he quickly found the guard's weakness. Like a shadow, he flipped over the walls. In terms of destructive power, the zero energy body might not be comparable to the blood meridian saints, but the advantage of the zero energy body was that it did not have any energy undulations. Just this point was enough for Tang Tian to avoid the majority of the probing-type treasures. That I am called a Cho. But compared to the sword spirit, which was a top-grade spirit domain, although form spirits were rare, but whether they were strong or not, they had a huge uncertainty. Some form spirits were very strong in the early stages, but became weak in the later stages, because it contained more than one type of law, and the deviation of the center of gravity was often uncontrollable. And some form spirits were weak in the early stages, but became very strong in the later stages. Without alerting anyone, he arrived at the groundsmaster establishment. The more Tang Tian thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. He immediately called Bing over and told him about it. Bing also felt that it made sense and quickly returned to Three Spirit City, and then passed the news back to Ursa Major Constellation, and asked them to check if there was such a similar spirit domain. Countless green grasses were like concealed weapons, shooting towards him like rain. The sharp piercing sound converged together, causing people's scalps to go numb. At that moment, Tang Tian realized that he had nowhere to hide. Very quickly, Ursa Major Constellation sent a reply: there truly was such a spirit domain. In that moment, Tang Tian understood. At that moment, a faint voice came out from the front. Those who come are guests, stay. Uncle thinks so too? Tang Tian could not help but nod his head. I think so too. Let's not think about it, I have to finish my work first. But this garden is my territory. That is also the reason why form spirits were gradually lost. Low key. If not for the other party entering his garden by mistake, he would not have sensed it. That's right. The big turtle stared at Tang Tian for a while, and Tang Tian could see it, causing the big turtle to be curious. Tang Tian turned and started to chop the ice bricks. I don't know. Tang Tian shook his head. You will know when you see it. Tang Tian quietly stood up, changed his appearance and figure. Without alerting anyone, he floated towards Ancient Cold City. Upon nearing Ancient Cold City, Tang Tian immediately felt that something was amiss. The security of Ancient Cold City was even tighter at night. The footsteps were light and fast and did not sound like a human's. Tang Tian subconsciously turned his body. When he turned, his eyes darkened and a gigantic figure stood in front of him. This sudden thought immediately made Tang Tian excited. Inside the garden, someone had barged in. Big Brother Jing, how sword spirit could be a spirit domain. Why can't Little Fool be a spirit domain? And Little Fool could directly control energy. This characteristic completely matched the characteristics of a spirit domain. Countless figures jumped out from all directions, and Tang Tian was shocked to realize that he was surrounded. In the darkness, countless flowers and grasses seemed to be cut by a formless energy, and slowly floated up, like erect concealed weapons. The situation was indescribably strange. The security of the groundsmaster establishment looked to be less strict, but Tang Tian knew that was definitely an illusion. With two saints overseeing the place, the danger was many times stronger than outside. I was discovered. Tang Tian was shocked. The big fellow in front of him was 2 to 3 times taller than him, and he needed to tilt his head up to be able to see its face. It was a star spirit tortoise that he had never seen before. The tortoise shell was like a small mountain, covered with mottled scars, and had an unspeakable vicissitude of life. The other exposed parts were covered with thick scales, and its 4 limbs were thick and short. The most unique thing was, its head was actually made up of threads of black mist, and the black mist would change from time to time, causing it to look extremely demonic. This was an extremely rare spirit domain called Form Spirit. Form Spirit was an extremely ancient spirit domain and was rarely seen nowadays. In the ancient times, the martial technique system was not as refined as it is now, and the spirit domains of saints at that time contained laws that were not as pure as today, and usually contained laws from many aspects. Tang Tian was overwhelmed with shock. An ambush? Thinking about that, Tang Tian's heart suddenly moved. Could it be that his Little Fool was also an extremely unique spirit domain? Seeing that, Tang Tian was suddenly enlightened. When he clearly saw that the shadows were clumps of grass, not only did he not feel relaxed, but the sense of danger in his heart became even more intense. Form Spirit was such a unique spirit domain. It had a certain level of intelligence. It did not contain one type of law. It was its own body and it had the ability to grow. But it was not without its flaws. If the current spirit domain was like a piece of land, saints could build whatever house they wanted on it. Then Form Spirit was like raising a pet. Its growth was too uncontrollable. Tang Tian suddenly revealed a look of caution. He felt an intense sense of danger, as though he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. Tang Tian curled his lips. You've already said it many times. Tang Tian waited for the night to come, while he stayed in his room to ponder on his martial techniques. Tang Tian watched as the big tortoise disappeared. He needed to calm down and find a solution. There were many saints who joined his camp, and they brought many theories and concepts of the saint domain, which was an eye-opener for Tang Tian. Tang Tian almost blurted out, but he remembered that it was not his territory. After reaching the saint level, saints with spirit domains would have a fundamental change in their fighting style. All of this was because the spirit domain could directly mobilize true power. The spirit domain's fighting style was strange. Some spirit domains could form a complete space and trap the enemy in the spirit domain, like the sword saint that Tang Tian met in the demon sealing sword. And some spirit domains could simulate the movement of true power, to be able to form even stronger attacks like Tang Tian's subordinate Feng Yu. And the spirit domains of Blood Meridian's martial artists were different from normal martial artists. Their spirit domains were usually used to strengthen the body. Other than that, there were many special spirit domains. For example, Jing Hao's sword spirit was an extremely special spirit domain. What a strange star spirit beast. Bing, who popped out, was surprised. On its body I actually can't feel any life force. Don't tell me it's dead? What are you? Tang Tian blurted out with a face full of shock. He had long forgotten about talking less to the 9 heavens. Chapter 490. Saints. Fu Zhongshan and the rest were in the hall, listening to Jiang Yang describe the process of the battle. Song Yongyu extended his palm, and a star treasure appeared in his hand. It was shaped like a snowflake with 6 branches, and at the end of each branch there was a moving eyeball. Seeing this, Tang Tian knew that his plans for the night were ruined. The groundsmaster establishment was built on a mountain, and the innermost part was a mountain. Tang Tian was stunned by the beautiful scenery in front of him, and for a moment he forgot to speak. Just at this time, a heavy snort came out from not far away. Trying to run? Fu Zhongshan and Li Ruo shouted in unison. It was their teacher, Song Yongyu. Following that, with a bang, a dazzling light aura blossomed like the sun in the west courtyard. The terrifying energy ripple swept out like a hurricane. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. Little fool. The two of them saw the shock in each other's eyes. The ice-cold stone steps continued to descend, and an indescribable ripple filled the tunnel. Although the two of them were saints, they could not help but shiver. Song Yongyu sighed lightly, his gaze becoming deep. You guys are underestimating it. Unknowingly, so many years have passed. There are some things that you guys will find hard to understand. Tang Tian's mind involuntarily surfaced, the image of himself falling into a meat paste, and immediately felt a dull pain in his body. Suddenly, Bing's expression changed and bellowed, "Quickly go, the old man is chasing us." Ancient Cold City's atmosphere was tense, as though they were facing a great enemy. If not for Little Fool, the opponent would immediately escape after missing his attack, and he would not be able to do anything. Now more than 80% of the sexton's eye had become glistening gold, only the center was still silver white. He paused for a moment and then said, "The one fighting with me is a Blood Meridian saint. He should have suffered some light injuries." Bing floated out and praised, "Little Fool is truly powerful. Such a beautiful scene. The last time I saw it, when was it? 10,000 years ago. Unless it was even more powerful than the rumors in the market." Just at this time, an indescribable ripple came out from the depths of the courtyard, causing Tang Tian's mind to tremble. He felt as though he was being stared at by something. The feeling of his entire body tightening caused him to freeze. They flew higher and higher, and in the blink of an eye, Little Fool brought Tang Tian through the clouds. The moment he jumped out of the sea of clouds, the cold moonlight illuminated the sea of clouds in front of him. In the endless sea of clouds, a bright moon hung high in the sky. Above the clouds, it was tranquil and windless, just like another world. Almost as soon as he had this thought, Little Fool suddenly grabbed onto Tang Tian's clothes and spun the star umbrella. Tang Tian felt an incomparably powerful force coming from his collar, and then his vision blurred, and like a rocket he shot straight up into the sky. "You're here." Fu Zhongshan's gaze turned towards his daughter Fu Zihong, who was sitting quietly at the side. You always have more ideas, tell me about it." The concentrated sound of something breaking through the air converged like a tide. The grass shadows that filled the sky were shining with a dense green light, and the killing intent was dense. This was the currently popular sexton's eye. Yes. Jiang Yang revealed a look of reminiscence. That spirit general grabbed him by the collar, turned the umbrella and flew straight into the sky. I couldn't catch up. Very straightforwardly, a saint's flying technique was completely different from a martial artist's light body technique. A martial artist's light body technique would always have a process of breathing in and out. After flying forward for a while, the energy would be exhausted and it was somewhat like gliding. But a saint's flying technique was truly flying and could break through the clouds with astonishing speed and agility like a fish. Little Fool's performance that night had surprised Tang Tian. It was definitely breathtaking, but he could not let Little Fool suddenly explode every time. Form spirit was also a type of spirit domain, so there must be a use for it. When the crowd dispersed, only Zhou Xian and Li Ruo were left. Both of them were silent. After a long while, Zhou Xian said, let's go see Master. Zhou Xian shook his head, never heard of it. He had trained in light body techniques in the past and had flown in the sky before and sat in a carriage before. The feeling of looking down from the sky could not be any better. But Tang Tian swallowed his saliva. The current height seemed a little too high. Good. Let's do it. Zhou Xian made the decision. A star treasure that no one had ever heard of before, and it was only a silver star treasure. Teacher, how much more time do you need? Your disciples will also have an idea. Li Ruo said respectfully. The groundsmaster's residence was as bright as day and was heavily guarded. Tang Tian reacted and his face turned white. This height. This is bad. Yes. Fu Zihong said calmly, looking at it now, paper cannot cover fire. Then why don't we put on a stance of waiting for the highest price and attract more buyers? Zhou Xian and Li Ruo looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Once the two words came out, everyone in the hall had a change of expression. To them, this was undoubtedly the worst situation. Onyx Soul's strength was unfathomable. Once they set their minds, they would definitely not be able to stop them. A skinny old man sat cross-legged, his face full of wrinkles, his expression peaceful. The sky full of grass shadows was swept clean. When Tang Tian returned to the training barracks was already a boiling cauldron of voices. Everyone had been awoken by the explosion. They all climbed up, looked at the energy barrier of ancient cold city and started discussing. You've worked hard. Song Yongyu said warmly, I already know about the matters outside. You don't have to worry too much, there are some things that cannot be stopped. Honger's idea is good, let's do it according to her. Tang Tian did not say anything and anxiously went into his room. The battle yesterday had given him a huge shock and impact. In the past he thought that saints were only SOSO and he had killed a few saints. Today he knew to be able to achieve such a result, it was definitely because of his luck. The opponent obviously did not expect him to be a freak. He soared into Tang Tian's body. Little Fool turned the umbrella handle, and like an agile fish, it drew an arc in the air and jumped into the sea of clouds. Tang Tian's eyes blurred again. Suddenly his surroundings were filled with white mist. Ding Chen saw him and his anxious face relaxed. He did not ask anymore. He knew that there were some things that he should not ask. Li Ruo was enlightened. Honger's meaning is for them to keep each other in check? Disciple was meditating when I suddenly felt someone barge in from the bushes. Disciple was extremely shocked. Before this person stepped into the bushes, Disciple did not sense him at all. Disciple decided to make him stay, and activated Floating Grass Needle Shadow. Disciple thought that I had a 90% chance of success and activated Floating Grass Needle Shadow. Inside the bushes, the opponent was a saint disciple, so I should have a fighting chance, but I did not expect the opponent's method of breaking it, and Disciple was shocked. A spirit general holding an umbrella suddenly appeared above his head. This spirit general looked like a 3 or 4-year-old child. The umbrella's surface was filled with stars and mist, and with a turn of the umbrella my grass needles were all sucked into the umbrella and Disciple lost contact. Coincidentally, when the explosion happened, the opponent seemed to have realized that his plan had failed, and the spirit general brought him up into the sky. And how do I use Little Fool? A gigantic stone room appeared in front of the two of them. In the stone room the cold air was oppressive, the 4 walls were covered with thick layers of ice, and the cold wave was extremely dense. No. Fu Zihong shook her head. We are trying to stall for time. As long as we can endure this period of time we will succeed. So we need to spread the news and attract more people's attention with more buyers. Onyx Soul will at least have some restraints. We can think of a way to stall for time. For example, we do not lack money and the opponent's price needs to move us. A figure rushed out of the sea of clouds. It was actually Li Ruo. His divine eyes were like lightning, slowly sweeping across the surroundings. As expected, a shrill alarm sounded out from every corner of ancient Cold City. A light barrier slowly rose. It was the energy barrier that represented ancient Cold City's defense. A light aura flashed in front of Tang Tian. Little Fool appeared on top of his head. The star's umbrella suddenly opened up, and with a spin, the sky full of grass was instantly sucked into the vast stars on the umbrella's surface. Tang Tian's shock turned into joy, who said that my little fool is not powerful. If I cannot escape at this time, I can only kill my way out. If I fall. This strange undulation came and went quickly. If not for Tang Tian's sharp senses, he would have suspected that it was an illusion. But he knew it was definitely not an illusion. Fu Zihong was quiet and gentle, dignified and magnanimous, her appearance beautiful. She muttered, "If Onyx Soul interferes, our situation will not be good. If that's the case, your daughter has an idea, we can openly sell it." The tunnel was very long. The two of them walked for a quarter of an hour before reaching the end. Openly sell. Fu Zhongshan frowned. Seems like someone has already seen through our plan. Fu Zhongshan said, "Tonight was their probing, we have already been exposed." He was like a fish, patrolling the sky above the clouds. He did not find anything, so he dived into the sea of clouds and flew back to ancient Cold City. Li Ruo hesitated for a while and carefully asked, "Teacher, are the rumors in the market true?" A gentle and warm voice sounded out and the old man opened his eyes. Li Ruo also said, "When I arrived there was no trace of him. Seems like this person is not a saint, but a strange spirit general." Umbrella holding tiled. "Does senior brother remember such a strong martial artist? Blood Meridian's saint?" Li Ruo's face changed. "Onyx Soul." Fu Zhongshan's face congealed and suddenly asked, "You said it was that spirit general who brought him up to the sky?" Fu Zhongshan and Li Ruo's faces were stunned. Song Yongyu's last sentence, "You underestimated it too much," made the two of them look at each other. "Then what do we do?" Li Ruo asked. Just based on this point, saints were many streets ahead of martial artists. And this was just for ordinary saints. Those saints who were bestowed with light body techniques were even more astonishing. Other than him there was actually someone else, and it was a saint. 1 month. Song Yongyu said gently, "Just 1 month, Sexton's Eye will be able to become a gold-ranked treasure." The Sexton's Eye spun around in the air like a snowflake. The 6 eyes lit up with different light auras. An indescribable pressure suddenly filled the entire stone room, causing Fu Zhongshan and Li Ruo to feel their bodies tensing up, as though they were unable to move. Chapter 491. Every bit of improvement in the spirit domain was extremely difficult. A complete system of spirit domains, to a saint, was a huge inspiration. It was equivalent to opening a new window for him. Furthermore, you could directly learn and follow the path of a spirit law, because that path had already been proven to be feasible. Rongbo suddenly asked, "Have you investigated Song Yongyu's background?" The only thing that comforted them was the defense of ancient Cold City. The sound of solid flesh colliding with the ground, the huge impact, caused him to see stars and his mind to go blank. The number of outsiders in ancient Cold City increased rapidly. The guards of ancient Cold City all acted as if they were facing a great enemy. No one knew which old man on the road was a saint that could destroy them with just a finger. Their generation had never thought that there would be a day where they would see so many saints. In their hearts, saints were like clouds in the sky, suddenly appearing so many, causing them to tremble with fear. He has never left Sexton's constellation. His subordinate was even more ashamed. The Honorable Martial Alliance's intelligence-gathering capabilities had always been powerful. Who knew that they could not find anything this time? Open? I had no choice. Rongbo laughed. What happened that year not many people know, but Onyx Soul definitely knows. Onyx Soul might want to take it all for himself. Song Yongyu had schemed so much, how could he be willing to let Onyx Soul have it? Might as well take it out and sell it publicly. 1 can share in the benefits, 2 can exchange for resources. Song Yongyu really calculated it well. Bang. Rongbo smiled, waved his hand. Let's go, this is a rare gathering of saints to broaden our horizons. It will not be a wasted trip. Rongbo, oh, then what about his whereabouts all these years? Beside him, Yi Zhaoge acted as though he did not hear anything. His gaze was fixated on the rumbling energy in the sky above ancient cold city, a trace of fighting intent flashing past his eyes. The concentrated sounds of collisions continued to sound out, hitting the ceiling, hitting the floor, hitting the walls. Tang Tian suddenly felt that he was a pinball in a secret room. Sexton's eye can lock onto positions. Rong Bo's expression was solemn. The stars in heaven's road are always changing, even the star door will change. So many treasures are sealed and no one can find, is because the records of the past have changed with time. And the position locked in by the sexton's eye, no matter how much time passes, it will be able to accurately display the position that was recorded in the past and where it is now. The soul law was extremely helpful to a saint and it was hard to describe it. Yi Zhaoge nodded and did not say anything. However, once the human and soul became one, there would be many mistakes and it would be a tragic sight to behold. Tang Tian's face turned pale. The energy around him suddenly became chaotic and out of control. Not good. Song Yang, you seem to have expected such a situation, as the ancient cold city was built at the place where the underground cold wave was the densest. Then they used the unique cold wave ice bricks to slowly guide the cold wave from underground. Over time, the density of the cold wave in the ice bricks of the city wall was astonishing, and its protection was also extremely astonishing. This time the cold wave storm had mostly damaged the inner walls of the city. The outer walls of the ice city were still intact. Bang bang bang. If there was anything that was fatally attractive to saints, the spirit law was definitely one of them. The so-called spirit law was the comprehension left behind by the saints, and inside it was sealed the saints' most original comprehension and understanding of the laws. But not all saints had the qualifications to write a spirit law, only gold saints had such qualifications. This meant that the spirit domain that he had comprehended was already relatively complete, and had touched upon the origin. The energy surrounding his body was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, and Tang Tian felt as though he was floating and sinking in the water. He was indeed floating and sinking. The feeling of flying in the spirit domain was completely different from light body techniques. Using the spirit domain to fly was directly using energy to move. Just looking at Little Fool's control of energy, it was extremely exquisite, causing people to exclaim in admiration. Tang Tian twitched on the floor, his four limbs twitching, and before he could regain his senses, the energy surrounding his body once again caused his body to float. Other than that, ancient cold city had 12 star treasures, which included a saint treasure. The saint treasure of Sexton's constellation, Heaven Sextons, was inside the city. Songyang Fighting Grounds had controlled Sexton's constellation for many years, but had never revealed that the saint treasure was in their hands. This also caused the defense of ancient cold city to reach a point that made people's hair stand on end. Saints were extremely sensitive to energy, and the ancient cold city in their eyes was completely different from the ancient cold city in the eyes of ordinary martial artists. The dense energy caused people to feel fear. Sexton's eye was truly an ancient cold city. Yes. Yi Zhaoge bowed. After being bestowed as a saint, every step was extremely difficult. And this difficulty was not something any martial artist below the saint level could understand. Every saint was created from killing countless of people, talent, perseverance and luck. Not a single one could be lacking. They were the true dragons amongst men, the geniuses amongst geniuses. The competition between these top-notch experts would also be exceptionally cruel and bitter. Tang Tian was being used in all sorts of imaginative postures, dancing and bouncing in the air, enjoying the speed and passion, enjoying the power and impact. He had already awoken from his daze. All the information was a lie. Tang Tian closed his eyes in despair, his body once again plummeting downwards. And a few news related to Sexton's eye surfaced. It was said that Sexton's eye harbored a gigantic treasure trove. Inside were countless of treasures and most importantly, there was a spirit law inside. The news related to Sexton's eye was not circulated amongst ordinary martial artists, and only spread amongst saints. Even the few saints of Ursa Major constellation knew about it. Bel also openly headed towards ancient cold city as the representative of Ursa Major constellation. The various powerhouses' representatives, saints, were all heading towards ancient cold city. What a painful realization. Suddenly the energy surrounding his body increased rapidly. Tang Tian had a bad premonition and immediately shouted, "Stop, stop, stop." What did they say about my form spirit being connected to my mind? Yi Xiaogu suddenly asked. Clan Elder, is there really a treasure trove in Sexton's Eye? Don't worry, Xiaogu. Rongbo said warmly. Clan Elder thinks highly of Jinghao and placed his bet on Jinghao, but in my eyes, you are much stronger than Jinghao. Our two families are old friends and you are no different from my nephew. You just focus on training, I will help you with the other matters. Rongbo heard and laughed. Xiaogu is also moved? This rumor might be true, we have checked. Sexton's Eye suddenly disappeared 20 years ago and landed in the hands of a mysterious person. At that time we had our eyes on him because he was related to a few treasure troves. He snatched Sexton's Eye and disappeared. We were curious why Sexton's Eye. After that, the clan elders researched and found out Sexton's Eye has a very secretive yet unique function. His body quickly rose from 1.5 he quickly rose to 3 then 6 10 Oh no. Bang. Another honorable martial alliance saint nodded his head. Seems like Song Yongyu's ambition is not small. He has 3 saint disciples under him. Sexton's Eye is a good bargaining chip. Using it to trade, he can definitely exchange for a large amount of support, enough for him to succeed in his career. He used a perfect back throw, fiercely smashing onto the ground. The power was so great the hard floor was smashed into a human-shaped hole. How to quickly master flying was his top priority. Luckily, he was a master and had a few talented subordinates. Very quickly, the method to train the form spirit was found out for Tang Tian's reference. If not for him being a zero-energy body, he would most probably have turned into meat paste and covered the entire training room. Although he did not turn into meat paste, but seeing that the entire training room was riddled with holes, deep and small holes everywhere, Tang Tian's tears flowed down his face. What did he say that his own form spirit and his own human spirit would become one? What did he say that his own form spirit and himself would never abandon each other? That's right. Rongbo laughed. If not for the clues left behind by him, we would not be interested in Sexton's Eye, and would never have thought that the unremarkable Sexton's Eye would actually have such a mystical ability. That is normal, there are many unorthodox star treasures that are not high grade but have unknown uses. But the power of time is still very strong. To want to reveal the location that was recorded in the past, we need to raise Sexton's Eye to a gold rank star treasure, and carve the location inside Sexton's Eye, only then will it appear. Bang bang. Tang Tian knew that with the huge commotion last night, it was not suitable for him to do anything sneaky for the next 2 days. Very quickly Bell sent a message causing him to be even more assured. Tia, this godlike young lad is so hardworking, do you know? Tang Tian monopolized the training room. So it was like that. Yi Xiaogu was enlightened but was immediately puzzled. Then why did Song Yongyu publicize it? There is a type of form spirit called other people's form spirit. No. The subordinate's tone was somewhat ashamed. We have checked all the information about Sexton's constellation, and there was no Song Yongyu's existence. And we did not find out Song Yongyu has any friends. His 3 disciples are all orphans. He picked them up after he opened up the fighting grounds in Sexton's constellation. Since he knew that Sexton's Eye was an ancient cold city, Tang Tian was not anxious. He was trying to find out how to fight alongside Little Fool. In the short term, this was extremely important. The zero-energy body's weakness in flying was undoubtedly exposed, and this was fatal to him. Yi Xiaogu was moved. It actually has such a miraculous use? Seems like he is not a simple person. Rongbo sighed. What use? Yi Xiaogu blurted out. But Tang Tian quickly realized, Little Fool was obviously different from the form spirits in the information. Little Fool definitely likes to play ball games. Has he played with Yaya too much? Kids really need to be cautious when making friends. This city was not built in a day. Song Yongyu had schemed for a long time. The one who spoke was an old man with white hair and a stern expression, dressed in the Honorable Martial Alliance Honorable Martial Elder robe. His temperament was graceful. His identity was extremely noble. He was the Honorable Martial Elder Rongbo. The Honorable Martial Elder held a high position in the Honorable Martial Alliance. For him to personally come, it showed how important he was. Only to see Tang Tian, who was in mid-air, suddenly increasing his speed, drawing out a beautiful arc, turning head down, he continued to increase his speed, diving down, fiercely crashing into the ground. Chapter 492. Tang Tian was in a daze as he looked at Little Fool. Crunch crunch. Tang Tian looked at the spirit technique card in his hand, feeling anxious. He suddenly remembered that Little Fool was eating spirit technique cards, so he handed the spirit technique card over to Little Fool. His cheeks swelled up. He used all his strength to chew. Little Fool's expression was focused. His black eyes lit up with light aura. Little Fool finally did not take the star rocks from Tang Tian's hand, causing Tang Tian's mind to be roused. Little Fool received the star rocks and started to chomp. Crunch, 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 crunch. Seeing that, Tang Tian continued to feed him the star rocks. Little Fool did not reject anything. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He ate very quickly. But Tang Tian was also very good. After Little Fool ate all the star rocks, did there not seem to be any changes? This is my own voice. Blink involved the laws of space, and its price was naturally extremely expensive. Furthermore, it was extremely practical. It could allow a saint to teleport within a range of 1 li. But when Tang Tian understood the gains, he immediately understood. The 340 billion was not spent in vain. The light aura in Little Fool's eyes gradually dimmed down. His pair of black eyes were extremely clear, brimming with qi. Suddenly, Little Fool's exquisite yet somewhat stiff face suddenly had a few more expressions, as though he was a sculpture in the past and was now alive. The number of saints in Ursa Major constellation was increasing day by day, and Ursa Major constellation had started to establish a specialized saint unit to collect the items that the saints used for training. Liang Feng and the rest were all excited as though they had been injected with chicken blood. It was truly a good thing to lean on a big tree. Although Ursa Major constellation could not be compared to the ecliptic palace constellations, but it was definitely not something a small constellation like Draco constellation could compare to. Even Draco constellation was powerless to collect them. How could the other scattered saints have the ability? As long as one's intuition reached a certain level, they would be able to sense the changes in space. Not only intuition, some probing type star treasures or probing type spirit techniques would definitely be able to sense it. Little Fool took the spirit technique card and without hesitation, stuffed it into his mouth. Tang Tian was pondering when Little Fool suddenly stopped. The poor waiter was smashed by Tang Tian until he was dizzy, seeing stars. His originally dull face was covered in dirt. His face was at a loss. It was not difficult for a saint to fly. It was like a thin layer of paper. In a situation where they had never seen it before or had no one to guide them, saints would often use their past experiences to imitate light body techniques. Below the saint rank, they were called martial skills, and after the saint rank, there was a fundamental change in the way they fought, and they were called spirit arts. Is this teleportation? So scary. He turned his head in shock. Little Fool was holding an umbrella floating behind his neck. Little Fool's body froze, his expression froze on his face, his eyes filled with fear. Buzz. When the last piece was stuffed into his mouth, Little Fool quietly stopped. Swish, swish, swish. Teleport 2 more, Tang Tian shouted. For the vast majority of novice saints who had just stepped into the saint realm, the realm after the saint realm was completely unknown. Even the saints under Tang Tian did not know how to fly. But that pair of eyes that were filled with spiritual energy made Little Fool immediately become lively. Little Fool's eyes suddenly lit up with a light aura. So when Tang Tian's orders came, all of them became extremely excited. They had some connections, it was just that they were short of money and could not afford it in the past. The power of instant teleportation was fast. 340 billion, it was unable to raise the realm of the saints in the saint unit by 1 level, but it was able to increase the fighting strength of the entire saint unit by a qualitative leap. 10 billion star coins to many small constellations was an astronomical figure that they could not reach, but in the sacred saint galaxy, it was not considered a large sum of money. He raised his head, looked at the umbrella he was holding, then lowered his head to look at his palms, then looked at the Tang suit he was wearing, and then lowered his head to look at his legs. Tang Tian was dumbstruck. Did this fellow's stomach lead to another world? Swish, Little Fool immediately floated up. It was obvious that Tang Tian's beating just now had an obvious effect. Tang Tian had a lot of star rocks. He was after all a master of a constellation. How could he be stumped by a mere star rock? But the problem was, in an intense battle, it was often a difference of 1/100th of a second. How much time would he have to break the star rocks? One by one, in the blink of an eye, Tang Tian had fed him over 10, but Little Fool did not have any intention of stopping. Spirit techniques contained laws that could not be described with words, and could only be comprehended, so they were made into spirit technique cards. If I don't say stop, you are not allowed to stop. Tang Tian continued. From this point it could be seen the difference between saints with inheritances and saints without inheritances. But the current Ursa Major constellation was considered a small tyrant with robust financial resources. It was fine if they did not know, but once they knew, the power they could unleash could not be underestimated. Why did it stop? Tang Tian looked and suddenly realized, the energy is gone. Tang Tian squatted in front of Little Fool and asked anxiously, how is it, how is it? Tang Tian was immediately roused, thinking about it. How could there be something invincible in the world? Be it martial techniques or spirit techniques, there must be a way to break them. Tang Tian was even more dumbstruck. To the saints under Tang Tian it was definitely a feast. Even if they did not train in spirit techniques, it would still give them a lot of inspiration. Tang Tian suddenly made his move, grabbing onto Little Fool. Bang bang bang, he smashed him on the ground and scolded, what are you blowing for? Asshole, I have long been unhappy with you. After smashing me so many times, ha ha ha, you are finally in my hands. Today I will let you understand how painful it is to be enlightened. It was Liang Feng the bootlicker. He specially used the fastest speed to meet up with Belle and then brought her over. Little Fool. Is this your doing? Suddenly, Little Fool in front of him suddenly disappeared. That's right, he suddenly disappeared. This kind of disappearance did not have any signs. There was no airflow. He completely disappeared. Tang Tian shouted, but Little Fool did not move. Tang Tian frowned and said fiercely, if you don't get up, I will continue to beat you up. Oh, thinking back at the moment when Little Fool disappeared, he actually still felt a little. Almost at the same time, a gust of wind blew from the back of his neck, causing Tang Tian's hairs to all stand. Little Fool originally looked very similar to Tang Tian. His facial features were exquisite, but he always lacked some vitality, causing people to think that he was a spirit general. This was definitely a big killing technique. If we say training martial techniques was to gain enlightenment on spirit domains, then spirit techniques were the product of deducing an enlightenment on laws. The range of movement of a mile meant as long as the opponent was within a mile of him, they would be in his attack range and he could attack anytime. Other than that, he could instantly escape from the battle, which was very useful when escaping. His gaze once again landed on Tang Tian's face, who had his mouth wide open in shock, his eyes filled with boundless rage. Shua shua, Little Fool obediently teleported twice. Tang Tian quickly realized another problem, and that was the problem of energy. The other saints had energy and the spirit domains also used the energy in their bodies. But Little Fool did not have energy. Without energy, these spirit techniques could not be used. What Tang Tian was using now was the method he used in the ice cave using star rocks. Little Fool's figure filled the entire room. His movements were extremely fast, not daring to be careless. There was only one spirit technique card in Tang Tian's hands, and it was also the only spirit technique card that they could buy that was worth more than 100 billion, and that was the famous Blink. Tang Tian carefully sensed it. Oh, there was indeed a feeling. The moment Little Fool disappeared, he would always have a trace of feeling. This trace of feeling was completely different from energy undulations. Oh, is this the undulation of space? Yes. Blink could not be completely silent because it did not disappear into thin air, but through the transformation of space. The simplest saint-level flying technique had a price as high as 10 billion star coins. Flying spirit techniques looked ordinary, but there was a difference in quality. Different prices of flying spirit techniques. Their speed, agility would be heaven and earth apart. Another example was the energy barrier, which was also the most commonly used defensive spirit technique by saints, but its defense and attack speed also had a huge difference. After spending a full 3 days, Tang Tian finally learned how to fly, but the price he paid was extremely heavy. If not for the zero energy body's strength, Tang Tian suspected that he would not even be alive. And Tang Tian realized, Little Fool was unable to continuously blink twice, and had to pause for 5 seconds in between. 5 seconds was not a lot normally, but in a battle, it was enough for the opponent to kill you countless of times. Suddenly he took out a star rock and gave it to Little Fool. Han Towel and Pai Pa had already strongly requested to stop the Saint unit's expenditure. The Big Dipper plan itself was a bottomless pit, and just the energy transformation of the army was already an astonishing expenditure. If not for Ursa Major constellation having the gold-spitting monster Fornax constellation, they would definitely not be able to bear it, but even so, it made the housekeeper Han Towel and Pai Pa feel an immense pressure. Speaking of which, it was Little Fool's credit. If not for Little Fool bringing Tang Tian to fly once, He would not have known that saints could fly like that. Tang Tian agreed to hand Towel and Pai Pa's request without hesitation. The old fellows of the saint unit were already extremely happy with such a huge harvest. They were extremely satisfied. Of course, there were two exceptions. One was Tang Tian, the other was Jing Hao. Both of them had a form spirit and a sword spirit. Both of them were extremely rare. Jing Hao was slightly better. He only focused on his work and did not have much to think about. What he needed was perseverance. But Tang Tian had a headache. He and Little Fool could indeed communicate, but it was extremely difficult. But how could Little Fool use spirit technique cards? So when Tang Tian saw the short few days the saint unit's expenditure, his face immediately turned green. 340 billion. His question was filled with anger, but when he opened his mouth he spoke in a childish voice. After venting his anger, Tang Tian's mood immediately became better. Holding onto his chin, he started to ponder, what if he were to meet a blink saint in the future? But I finally learned how to fly. This feeding session lasted for an hour. Tang Tian immediately felt elated. This young lad could also fly in the sky. Thinking about that, he could not help but be eager to try it out and wait for the sky to turn dark to test it out. Chapter 493. So humiliating. After 30 seconds, Little Fool woke up. His face was gloomy and he struggled out of the mud. Tang Tian did not feel anything. He was in a good mood. He felt that he was too powerful. He could settle Little Fool in minutes. He waved his hand. Let's go. Little Fool, let's go train outside. Oh, could it be that you have not been enlightened? Tang Tian muttered. He quickly grabbed onto Little Fool's leg, and then smashed him on the ground like a sandbag. Asshole. Gangster. Scoundrel. Bing happened to appear. Hearing Little Fool's words, his eyes lit up as though he had discovered a new continent. Little Fool can speak now? Tang Tian flew above the sea of clouds. He was unspeakably carefree. He was like a fish swimming freely. He had never experienced such flight before. It was too satisfying. The two figures, one big and one small, looked at each other dumbstruck. Asshole, just you wait. I will definitely take back control of this body. Bang bang bang. Yaya immediately revealed a happy expression, squeaking and somersaulting on the ground. The waiter once again struggled to stand up. His face was covered in dirt and a disdainful smile appeared on his little face. He was heroic, like a martyr who was about to die for a just cause. He said in a childish voice, "Do you think you can make me yield just like that? He is so stupid. How can he be my opponent?" There was only one thought in his mind: I definitely cannot let this happen. You actually dare to resist, he. He shot forward and squatted down, pulling and pulling on Little Fool. Looking at him for a long time, he would turn Little Fool around and then pull Little Fool upside down, muttering, "There seems to be some changes." 10 minutes later. Damn it. This voice. You win. Little Fool said in a childish voice, like a little kid for a comic book for a piece of candy. He gave up on a war. Afraid of being recognized, Tang Tian controlled his body, changed his appearance and then quietly brought Little Fool out. Humiliation. But when the killing intent rose in his chest. So that's it, then why are you trembling? I actually was. Damn it. Then I can only let everyone see your little bean sprout. Tang Tian grinned, revealing his white teeth. Oh, there's a female hoodlum called Sai Lei. You definitely know her. She likes pretty and cute little boys the most. You really won't yield? Tang Tian squatted down and asked curiously. Little Fool had always felt that he was a person without a bottom line, without warmth, a person who would do anything to achieve his goals. But today he realized that the fool in front of him was even worse than he thought. Right, I almost forgot someone. Tang Tian said proudly, Angelina. Andromeda constellation Angelina, she's a beauty. Why is this happening? Little Fool muttered to himself. His eyes were blank, but his childish voice made his words filled with the innocence of a child. It was as if a child was filled with curiosity towards the world. In Little Fool's mind, the image of the beautiful body appeared, the image of the shy young lady appeared. He was not stupid at all. Of course he knew of Angelina's feelings for him. It was just that his personality was cold, and did not put Angelina in his heart. He only treated Angelina as a chess piece. Why is Little Fool trembling? Bing was surprised, thinking about how he was actually forced into such a state by the fool, and had to endure the childish and stupid shouts of a lunatic. Little Fool's head spun. He was once again swung up like a sandbag, Bang bang bang, very quickly he was buried in the dust. Little Fool had already fainted. Yaya also appeared. Unscrupulous Bing immediately shouted, "Yeah, quickly come and see your brother Little Fool's little bean sprout." He was completely unable to hear what Bing and the rest were saying. If he could hear them, he would definitely regret not hearing them. Yaya puffed out his chubby tummy and ran over to show off to Little Fool. "Well done." Bing praised in all seriousness and left, leaving behind a sentence, "You guys continue playing." Then, what is going on with this world? Discouraged. Little bean sprout. Asshole. Truly, this is too humiliating. Suddenly Little Fool, who was in a daze, suddenly felt his pants become cold. An evil hand pulled open Little Fool's pants. Bing took a look and clicked his tongue. Little bean sprout did not grow up much. Little Fool looked at Tang Tian in a daze, as though he was seeing Tang Tian again. In the snow under the moonlight. Despicable. The childish voice was squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth. Little Fool was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Little Fool seemed to have awoken from his dream, his eyes twitched, the anger in his chest surging up. But when paired with the childish voice, it suddenly became indescribably cute, just like an angry child fuming with anger. Little Fool's heart was bleeding. Yaya's eyes lit up. Whoosh, he appeared in front of Little Fool, sticking his head out to take a look. Then his face revealed an enlightened expression, and then he lowered his head to look at himself and could not help but scratch his head. Under the big hand, Little Fool's delicate face became taut, his eyes filled with a haze. How stupid must this fool be to shout out like a lunatic? Little Fool was completely stupefied. For a moment he forgot to resist. Little Fool's pink fists were tightly clenched, his little face was white from anger, and he stared fiercely at Tang Tian. He was trembling just now. Could it be that I hit him too hard? Tang Tian muttered. Ha ha ha. Tang Tian was extremely pleased. Little kids were the easiest to fool, even with his intelligence. Pui pui pui, the intelligence of this godlike young man was very high, at least higher than a Maori. Can he talk without hitting? Tang Tian's thought process was obviously different from others. He said confidently, "It was because I randomly smashed the ground just now, and that made him enlightened." Little fool, Tang Tian immediately sensed it. You're rebellious now that you can talk? You used to be very obedient. Never given. Little Fool replied in his childish voice. Little Fool realized he was completely unable to control his body. His eyes were wide open, filled with fear, reflecting Tang Tian's sinister smile. Little Fool's heart was filled with killing intent. Stupid brat, you think with your little bit of strength you want to be my enemy? Go to hell. Asshole. Yeah. But, you don't even let such a little kid off. Little Fool pointed at Tang Tian. He was so angry that he was trembling, just that such words of condemnation were said in such a childish voice. Damn it. Little Fool, you better think carefully. When everyone knows that your little bean sprout is not as good as Yaya, that will hurt your feelings and your pride. Look, I'm not trembling anymore. Tang Tian proudly displayed Little Fool in his hands. And I have to look at an idiot who has to squat on the ground. Little Fool swore in his heart. Little Fool is so cute, why did you hit him? Bing asked. But when he woke up again, the scene in front of him made him almost unable to believe his eyes. What happened next was a nightmare after a nightmare. No, it was a nightmare that was more terrifying than the previous one. Tang Tian beamed with joy as he kneaded Little Fool's hair into a bird's nest. Little Fool, be good. Wait till you finish training, I'll let Yaya play with you. Little Fool felt as though he was struck by lightning. His entire body froze and his mind went blank. Hearing Tang Tian's crazy shouts, Little Fool's face became so gloomy that water could be squeezed out of it. Because he realized his body was unable to go against Tang Tian's will. As long as Tang Tian's mind moved, whatever he wanted him to do, his body would do it. Hehe. Tang Tian was pleased. He had just realized that Little Fool's reaction to other people looking at his little bean sprout was extremely intense. Since violence was not useful, then he would change to another method. I have many female gangsters under me. Han Towel has a sister called Xiao Juzi. He completely did not know that within this pink body of Little Fool, there was actually a dangerous and dark consciousness of an adult. Seems like it. Tang Tian also had a look of agreement and then patted Little Fool's head. Little Fool, don't be discouraged, slowly grow up. Tang Tian came back to his senses and instantly became excited. He squatted down and with a face full of excitement he shouted, "Wow, little fool, you can speak." Angelina. Although they were sleeping in the same body, in his eyes, this fool only had a bit of luck and a bit of brute strength while he was the true master of this body. Little bean sprout. Noble, intelligent, calm, strong and proud, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? He was only hiding for the sake of the big picture, just to plan for the future, just to not attract the attention of those terrifying fellows. He had never thought that this fool would be stronger than him, and even more so, he did not think that this fool would be able to truly control this body one day. Without saying anything else, Tang Tian stretched out his hand to grab little fool. "Wah wah 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 wah, I'm coming, watch me fly." Little fool had not regained his senses from the impact. The sky and earth were spinning, and then he had an intimate contact with the ground, and in the moment of contact, in the dust that rose up, his mind was filled with despair. When the scene of Angelina curiously looking at his little bean sprout appeared in his mind, he felt as though his world had collapsed. He trembled in fear. It was too scary. All of his willpower to resist disappeared without a trace. The raging flames of anger in his chest seemed to have been doused by a basin of ice water. His chest was filled with killing intent. He wanted to kill all of these despicable fellows, to wash away the humiliation. The intense killing intent caused him to disregard the fact that the fool was of the same origin as him, to disregard the deep plans behind him, to disregard everything. "Seems like Yaya's little bean sprout is slightly bigger." Bing scratched his chin and commented with a professional look. Cold as the snow, there was no sound at all. This fool actually did this. The unprecedented humiliation caused him to tremble in anger. He could not help but squeeze out 2 words from his teeth. "Asshole." Tang Tian's face was joyful. To him, little fool was a 2 to 3-year-old kid. Little kids were easily sensitive to such insignificant, meaningless and small matters, and were especially mindful of them. Yaya was so scared that her face turned white and immediately disappeared. "Although I can't break it, but it hurts to look at it." Chapter 494. Magic Flute was intelligent. After pondering for a moment, he understood Tang Chao's thoughts and asked in surprise, "You want to use this war to find a way to deal with the saints? Teacher, you are Gunan, right? I am an evil person and no one is more suitable to be the executioner than me." These people did not attract the attention of Ursa Major constellation, but Tang Chou regarded them with importance. The veterans that survived the cruel battles were not comparable to ordinary martial artists. And to be able to break through in battle, it meant that they had a strong desire to live, and that was a rare quality. But the merciful did not command an army for the master. For the army, their own lives were insignificant. Thus, this stupidity, it had a strong pulse, it had a passionate and crazy passion, it had an arrogance that did not fit in with the world, it had a stubborn and sharp belief that pierced through people's hearts like a spear. Ling Su paid the price of being injured and escaped. Wei Wei and revealed a pondering expression and suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, could it be grandfather? Teacher is truly the silver frost mounts." Jing Hao knew himself he was strong, but when it came to commanding battles he did not know anything. He nodded. "What do you need me to do?" Ling Su's guess was confirmed once again and he calmed down. She asked Ling Su, but Ling Su did not tell her. Tang Chou shook his head, not waiting. Ling Su suddenly thought of a guess. His breathing suddenly became chaotic. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked Wei Wei An, "When did your grandfather leave Big Dipper?" Wei Wei An's soft heart was pierced by the sharp belief and fighting intent. Ling Su's voice revealed a trace of fatigue. He leaned his entire weight on the tree trunk, not moving, allowing the perspiration on his face to flow. Magic Flute sighed faintly. "Just that, the casualties." The army advanced forward. The current Cetus constellation had long merged with Ursa Major constellation, Gong Qing had escaped, and Tang Tian did not massacre Cetus constellation. Their families were alive and well, causing the resistance of the Cetus martial artists to decrease greatly. Since they were still alive, they naturally had to consider more realistic problems. Everyone had their families to feed, and Tang Chao's recruitment made them heave a sigh of relief, and also had some anticipation. Almost all of the Cetus martial artists who had recovered all chose to join. The addition of the Cetus martial artists raised the army's strength greatly. Wei Wei An could not say the word stupid, no matter how stupid it was, when it was so crazy, so determined, so resolute, so courageous and so reckless. Wei Weiyan could not say the word stupid no matter how stupid the matter was, when it was so crazy, so determined, so courageous, so forward, so disregarding everything. It was because of the battle that had shaken her heart. She had never seen a martial artist so crazy and stubborn in battle. The warriors in the tribe compared to Ling Su were far inferior. Tang Chao's eyes flashed past Long and Frost. Long Tang Wei Tang Tian Wei Chapter 2 Tang. This was something that Tang Chou absolutely could not tolerate. His Excellency had painstakingly established such a foundation. How could he stop because of this? Long, the time after time, the number of Tang there, the experts there, and Tang there, long time. But there with Long. That was also why, after every big battle, the number of experts did not decrease, but increased rapidly. To make the same mistake twice, that was just plain stupid. Wei Weiyan thought that the battle would let Ling Su understand the difference in strength between them, but she did not expect that after resting for a day, Ling Su would return and escape again. Tang Chou knew that with such a large number of casualties, Master would definitely be furious, and he would lose Master's trust and might even be punished. 1 hour. Wei Weiyan said. The current Tang Tian was like the sun in the sky. His reputation was flourishing, although he had only risen for a short period of time, but he had already become a tyrant. Tang Chou did not tell Magic Flute about these thoughts. Magic Flute was different from him. Everyone had their own mission. Tang Chou's expression was cold and did not say a word. As long as we can find a way to fight against saints, any price is worth it. Tang Chou's tone was cold without any warmth. You think I am doing this for the fame? Tang Chou sneered. Of course I know how powerful saints are, but we have to win against them. Because our future enemies are destined to be saints. But what about the same mistake, making it 7 times? Xiao Bai's mother? Ling Su was at a loss. This weird form of address immediately made him dizzy. In Tang Chou's plan, in the future army's configuration, gold-ranked martial artists would become the core of the army. Tang Chou looked at Jing Hao. His heart was filled with admiration as expected of a trustworthy person. His tone was still cold. Magic Flute will travel with me. Alcade City will be handed over to you. Swordhorn Snow Goat. Yes. Wei Weiyan nodded her head. Grandfather left Big Dipper many years ago. We do not know where he went and only returned after many years. He even brought Xiao Bai's mother back. Grandfather once said he saved a friend and asked him to bring back his friend's mount, which was Xiao Bai's mother. Fighting would increase the frequency of the silverization, and the pain of the silverization would also increase continuously. But as long as he could endure it, his arm would produce a stream of clear current, entering his spirit domain, and he could feel his spirit domain becoming stronger. He knew why. In the forest there had already been 7 battles. Wei Weiyan looked at Ling Su's appearance. She bit her lips and did not say a word. That heroic face was twisted and sinister, covered in perspiration. His coarse breathing was filled with endless pain. This time Ling Su did not reject. He muttered, I saw it from teacher's notes. He was saved by someone in his early years, and that person had the same white crescent moon imprint as you. An hour later his physical strength was completely recovered. That's right. Tang Chou said coldly. The Battle of 3 Spirit City gave me a lot of enlightenment, but I want to confirm what I have in my heart. All of the tactics can only be tested in actual battles. Grandfather? Ling Su was startled. This man is truly a sharp flame. She suddenly asked, Brother Ling, why did you save me? How long has it been? Now was the best time. No matter how many casualties there were, to the current Ursa Major constellation, it was something they could endure. If they were unable to complete the upgrade of their army in this period of time, and were unable to find a way to deal with the Saints, then in the next phase of the war, Ursa Major constellation would completely fall into a passive state and lose their competitiveness. Xiao Bai is a very handsome sword-horned snow goat. Wei Weiyan explained, I have never seen Xiao Bai's mother, but not long after Xiao Bai was born she passed away. All of the armies that were truly famous in history were not trained, but were continuously tempered and baptized in battles, using countless of corpses to build them up. About 300 years ago the Silver Frost Mounts produced 2 spear technique geniuses, Gu Nan and Lian Yu. Gu Nan died and his corpse was never found. Wei Weiyan was shocked. She pointed to the white crescent moon imprint on her earlobe. Brother Ling, is this it? Ling Su did not say a word. He was recovering his physical strength. In the past few days of battles, his strength had increased greatly. Other than gaining a deeper understanding of his spear techniques, another important discovery was the secret of silver transformation. In the past, he did not form his spirit domain, and thus did not discover the secret of silver transformation. Are we not going to wait for Ling Su and Crane? Jing Hao was taken aback. The wind blew the young lad's silver hair, that handsome and masculine face, caused Wei Wei and to be absent-minded. 7 battles. In every battle Ling Su fought 1 against 2. At the start Wei Wei and could not understand because in 1 against 2 Ling Su did not even have the slightest chance of winning. And the battles were exactly as she thought. Ling Su was firmly suppressed without any chance, and was in a difficult and dangerous situation. Ling Su could not help but hold on to the silver spear in his hand tightly. Previously he had a faint guess in his heart, but he never had any proof. But at the moment this confirmation was proven. Magic Flute looked at Tang Chou and sighed, "Ah Chou, you are too cold. Silver frost mounts. Good." Jing Hao did not speak nonsense. "Leave Alcade City to me." After so many days he had already completed the replenishment and reorganization of the army in Alcade City. Especially he had replenished the survivors of the 3 whale army into the army. At that time these people had bitterly withstood Tang Tian's whirlpool sword storm, and at the critical moment of life and death many of them had a breakthrough. Although they were injured by the whirlpool sword storm, but after treatment they were basically healed. Medical Saint Ding Man's contribution was huge. The heart-piercing pain in his right arm caused his mind to go blank. Grandfather is the oldest person in the tribe, and is already 330 years old. Wei Wei and counted with her fingers. When grandfather left he was almost 30 years old, that should be 300 years ago. Magic Flute floated beside Tang Chou and said warmly, "Why are you so anxious? Saints are not easy to deal with, and the road to becoming a famous general cannot be rushed." Ling Su's mind trembled, his pupils suddenly dilating. Sword-horned snow goat was the standard mount of the silver frost mounts, and was long extinct. The current black feathers mounts were equipped with black-feathered antelopes. Ling Su leaned on a tree trunk. The tree trunk was covered with moss and the air was warm. His body was trembling, gasping for breath. His expression was in pain. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His orange pupils were not focused, but were leaping with a blazing flame. The most direct way for an army to improve was through fighting, and the survivors of the whale army were the best examples. Because only at the critical moment of life and death would it be easier for them to burst forth with potential, and easier for them to achieve a breakthrough. The desire to live was an instinct. If not for the whirlpool sword storm, the whale martial artists would need to spend a long time to break through, and most of them would not even be able to achieve a breakthrough in their entire lives. Yes. Ling Su nodded his head. The meticulous Wei Wei and noticed that the frequency of it flaring up was getting higher. From the first few days it was now flaring up every day. Her heart was filled with worry. Ling Su's body was worsening. The gasping gradually stopped, the twisted and sinister face gradually smoothed out, the trembling and taut body gradually relaxed and stabilized, the unfocused orange pupils gradually regained their focus. Chapter 495. An unremarkable bone appeared in old Yu's hands. This was just a part of his collection and was not worth much. Liar. This was the origin of the development of the modern spirit domain, and following the development of the modern martial technique system, the refinement had already reached the pinnacle. When Tang Tian landed on the ice plains he was taken aback. On the ice plains figures could be seen everywhere. A trace of caution flashed past his eyes. But Tang Tian's gaze landed on the cold-looking martial artist beside the old man. Tang Tian became famous after his battle with him, but in that battle he was in the limelight. With his strength alone he suppressed Tang Tian, Jing Hao and the rest. Now that Tang Tian's reputation was rising, Yi Zhaoji's reputation also rose along with it. Countless people wanted to step on his shoulders to become famous, but no one succeeded. Yi Zhaogu was moved. It was one of the most famous spirit technique cards in the Honorable Martial Alliance, hailed as one of the strongest spirit technique cards in the Bronze Saint level. Of course he knew the value of this spirit technique card. Even within the Honorable Martial Alliance, the price was as high as 200 billion. It was still something that could be bought whenever one wanted to. Thinking about this, old Yu said patiently, "This is indeed a saint bone. When ancient saints pass away, it is also called nirvana. Their bodies and spirits will be destroyed, leaving no trace in the world. Only very few saints after death their bones did not completely disappear. These bones left behind are saint bones. Legend has it that saint bones are the best nourishment for formed spirits. Yi Zhaoge did not mind and just stood up. He had experienced this many times and was long used to being challenged. Little fool turned his face. He could not bear to watch. Can your expression be any more fake? He immediately felt a trace of pressure. If old you lost this spirit technique card, it would be a loss of close to 200 billion star coins. To old you, it would definitely be a heartache. For example, to quantify the size of the spirit domain, they came up with the concept of spirit value. Not only could the spirit domain be measured by spirit value, the spirit value required for every type of spirit technique was also listed out by them. In this way they would be able to accurately determine how many spirit techniques he could cultivate. Yi Zhaoge had a weird expression. This bone was only slightly larger than a knuckle and was covered in dust. It looked like a small lump of soil and was very inconspicuous. Tang Tian nodded pretentiously. But words are no proof. Everyone says that the Honorable Martial Alliance is very powerful. I don't believe it. Little fool was not happy about this at all. He was scheming hard as he tried to come up with one plot after another. He was thinking about how he could take back control of his body. Liar. I didn't expect this cold wave to have such a magical effect. Tang Tian immediately used a suspicious gaze to size up Elder Yu. Hey, now I'm suspecting if you're from the Honorable Martial Alliance? You can't be a liar, right? Song Yongyu is really making a fortune silently. This battle was worth watching. Elder Yu said with interest. Then how can you believe me? On the other hand, the formed spirit was the product of the ancient chaotic thoughts. The ancient saints believed that the heaven and earth were one, and that life was chaotic and unclear. The birth of a formed spirit was usually very random because it could not be directly and precisely controlled. You won. Elder Yu was startled and immediately laughed involuntarily. He did not think that Yi Zhaoge would lose. He smiled and said, Young man, you're very confident. Since it's like this, then I'll bet. This saint bone is one of my collections. To other people it has no use, but to your formed spirit it is very beneficial. You don't have to win as long as you can withstand 20 moves from him. Never thought that he would see a formed spirit here. Tang Tian's face was full of disbelief. He muttered, I randomly picked up a bone from the cemetery and it looks better than this. Saint Bone, who are you lying to? Where is the saint? Elder Yu's face twitched. He squeezed out a sentence from his teeth. Then what do you say? More and more people moved after hearing the news. Yi Zhaoge was not a nameless person. Although among the saints his qualifications were shallow, but to be able to step into the saint level at such a young age, he was definitely a genius. Tang Tian scoffed and kept the things. Fight with him. Tang Tian pointed at Yi Zhaoge and said, As long as he wins, I'll follow you. Elder Yu's face was somewhat ugly. He suppressed the anger in his heart. If not for the vanishing formed spirit, just based on what he said just now, he would not hesitate to kill this fellow. Wait till you fall into my hands, I'll definitely dry you and make you into a specimen. In my collection there will be one more. Modern formed spirit, it was also a good collection. But Elder Yu's status was very high. He was deeply trusted by Elder Rong. Usually Elder Rong would also give him many pointers. So Yi Zhaoge still restrained his temper. Elder Yu was very interested in the cold wave. It was not that there were no things that could nourish a spirit general. But every one of them had a sky-high price. A place like the ancient cold snow plains had extraordinary value. But he was more curious about that fool's reaction. Tang Tian said unhappily, Hey old man, don't take a broken bone and say it's some saint bone. You're really from the Honorable Martial Alliance? You're not lying, right? People from the Honorable Martial Alliance are all filthy rich. Spirit Technique card. Add another Spirit Technique card. Tang Tian raised a finger. Hey, you're an important person from the Honorable Martial Alliance. That kind of common stuff, don't take it out. Good is good, but it's a pity it's too thin. Killing intent flashed past Elder Yu's heart. His face did not change. He threw the Spirit Technique card and Saint Bone over. Hee fine. This young fellow is quite scheming. But speak with your strength, there's no room for regrets now. But this fool's strength seemed to be improving rather quickly. Elder Yu laughed. His courage is commendable. Xiaogu, go and exchange a few moves with this young fellow. Don't be too ruthless. At this time, there were already many saints who were attracted by the commotion here. They were watching from afar. Little Fool also noticed Yi Xiaogu. Previously everyone fought to the death. Meeting again, naturally he was extremely jealous. Wait a minute. Tang Tian shouted, if I lose to him then I'll follow you. What if I win? Tang Tian descended with some dissatisfaction. The feeling of flying in the sky was simply too great. It was as fast as lightning. Under the clear and cold moonlight and the endless sea of clouds, if he brought Xie to play like this he would definitely be overjoyed. The exclamations from the surroundings immediately made Tang Tian know that this spirit technique card was definitely a good thing. Form Spirit. Honorable Martial Alliance. Tang Tian revealed an interested expression. I heard that people from the Honorable Martial Alliance are all very powerful. Elder, you had experienced this kind of thing many times. As for the other party not wanting to join the Honorable Martial Alliance, he did not even think about it. It was good to enjoy the shade under a big tree. The Honorable Martial Alliance was fully deserving of being the #1 tree. Who could reject it? As for this young fellow, Elder, you did not care about his strength. He was only interested in the form spirit. If not for the form spirit being a saint's spirit domain, he would have snatched it long ago. An old man shouted, causing Tang Tian to be startled. He turned his head and saw an old man and another cold-looking martial artist standing side by side. The old man looked at Little Fool, his eyes lit up. That was why Xiaogu was surprised. In this day and age there were still people who used such an outdated method to train. Even if he attracted the other party, he was just a test subject. So what if this was Sexton's constellation? As long as it was reasonable, he was not afraid of killing until rivers of blood flowed. Hearing the words that entered his ears, Tang Tian somewhat understood. So everyone was actually looking for the cold wave. Thinking about the day when Little Fool and the rest ate until they were full, Tang Tian laughed happily. Young fellow, you actually managed to cultivate a form spirit. Not bad, not bad. Elder, you praised. How is it? Do you have any interest in joining the Honorable Martial Alliance? If not for the fact that there were so many people here. Elder Yu was enjoying it. The Honorable Martial Alliance has a long history and has all sorts of records. As long as you work hard, you will definitely be better than other powerhouses. Form spirits, this type of spirit domain had long been eliminated. Elder Yu was so angry that the wrinkles on his face were trembling, like a layer of water rippling. He was too lazy to talk nonsense and immediately took out a spirit technique card. This spirit technique card, Dawn Light. He wanted to prove it in front of everyone. Now the other party did not even have the chance to regret. The Honorable Martial Alliance's regret was not something that could be easily reversed. Little Fool's face was as gloomy as water, as though he was a little kid throwing a tantrum with his parents. Kill the fool? Elder, you actually took out the spirit technique card. Yi Xiaogu knew that the matter was not as simple as he thought. Yi Xiaogu. The current generation's spirit domain was extremely particular about efficiency. The capacity of the spirit domain was limited, and the number of spirit techniques that could be stored was also limited. How to be more efficient was the ultimate goal of the current generation's spirit domain. Little Fool's eyes suddenly lit up. The smell that the bone emitted. Impossible. The two of them were two sides of the same body. The fool could only be suppressed and not killed. In his heart he could not wait for someone to come and beat up Tang Tian. If Tang Tian was heavily injured, maybe he still had a chance. Yi Xiaoji's gaze also landed on Little Fool. His expression was cold as usual, but a trace of surprise flashed past his eyes. Form spirits, such an ancient spirit domain, and there were still people training in it? Many years ago, form spirits had already been eliminated and no one had trained in it. Tang Tian squinted his eyes and opened his mouth. Enemies were truly bound to meet on a narrow road. These were two completely different thoughts, and there was no difference in superiority or inferiority. But to anyone, being bestowed as a saint was extremely difficult. It was not easy to step into the saint rank and to gamble on one's character. The saints were naturally not willing. They were more willing to choose a path that might not be stronger but could obviously be controlled. In Elder Yu's eyes, the young lad in front of him definitely recognized Yi Xiaogu, and wanted to use a battle with Yi Xiaogu to display his strength and obtain a good treatment. It was a good thing for a young lad to have a competitive heart. Yi Xiaogu was a publicly acknowledged genius. and naturally could not avoid becoming the target of comparison. The unfamiliar fellow in front of him did not seem to be worth 200 billion star coins. Tang Tian agreed without hesitation. All right. But give me the thing first in case you guys go back on your words later. Anyways, you guys are not afraid of me running away. The two of them walked one round and stopped in disappointment. Song Yang, you did not give anyone the chance. The source of the cold wave was deep under ancient cold city. As for the cold wave in the air and the ice, to them it was too thin and did not have any value to saints. No. Just drying you will not be able to dispel the hatred in my heart. Wait till you land in my hands. See how I will take care of you. As for the surprise from the old man beside him, he was not surprised. The old man had a very strong retro complex. Yi Zhaogu scoffed at this point in his heart. Those things that had already been eliminated, all proved that they were already outdated and useless and were not worth the effort. Chapter 496. No one had expected that a battle between two saints would actually be a competition of strength. However, they had no choice but to admit that this simple and unadorned attack was filled with destructive power. Most importantly, he was simply too shameless, as expected, to deal with this fellow. All he needed to do was to provoke him. The middle-aged man beside him was tall and thin. His eyes were sunken and his expression was sinister. Yi Zhaogu is your main opponent. The other party's speed was extremely fast, and the frequency of his attacks was simply unimaginable. His moves were simple and straightforward without any fancy moves. Most of them were basic martial techniques, but they were complemented by a strong force, which was extremely lethal. Yi Zhaoji's heart trembled, but his face did not change at all. A sword appeared in his hand and he lightly raised it. Although the sword's soul was rare, it was still unable to move the other elders. The honorable martial alliance had existed for so many years, and there would always be some unsuccessful disciples who left the martial group and shone brightly. This was not strange, but Jing Hao's actions were viewed as treason by many of the light sect's elders. Tang Tian refused to give up. Can we really not escape? Little fool kept his mouth shut. He thought to himself, if only all the enemies in this world were as easy to deal with as this idiot. Although Yi Zhaogu had expected the other party to be very strong, he did not expect the other party to be so strong. Almost at the same time, the unfamiliar face appeared in front of Yi Zhaogu. So fast. The figure in front of him suddenly became blurry, and a cloud of mist exploded around the blurry figure. Sound barrier. Rongbo can also sweep them away. The middle-aged man glanced at the young man. It's a tacit understanding that we won't make a move. Whoever broke this tacit understanding would mean an all-out war. No one dared to open this box. The Honorable Martial Alliance dared to attack the Leo constellation, but definitely did not dare to provoke an all-out war. The Leo constellation dares to fight the Honorable Martial Alliance, but at the same time they do not dare to provoke an all-out war. Our Onyx Soul also does not dare. So, Song Yongyu is very smart. Being stimulated by Yi Zhaogu, the others all headed to the front lines and joined in the battle against the Leo constellation, to temper their own strengths. They grew up in blood and fire while we watched from the sidelines. Tonggu said softly, they are becoming vultures, but we are still poultry. We are still waiting for the two vultures to fight each other and we can reap the benefits without doing anything. However, Master, is a vulture that can be defeated by a fowl? In the past, among the many geniuses of the Honorable Martial Alliance, Yi Zhaogu was definitely not the most dazzling one. However, he was the first to become a martial sage. And he was also the only martial artist who could suppress Tang Tian. Qiu Shan had died in Tang Tian's hands, and Zhang Ming he had fallen in Three Spirits City. From this angle, Tang Tian's nickname of Radiant Grindstone was truly true to his name. Moreover, this fellow seemed to be in a daze. No one was surprised by Yi Zhaoji's performance, but that ugly guy's strength couldn't be underestimated. Sure enough, the combination of provocation and awakening of hatred would definitely make dumbass explode. What about Leo constellation? Why didn't they come? If not, we can still provoke them. The young man laughed. The sounds of collisions suddenly became louder. Yi Zhaogu released a sword screen, and under Tang Tian's torrential attacks, it did not move at all. He had completely forgotten about his previous miserable experience. Bullshit. Tang Tian was enraged. Don't talk about 20 moves, even 200 moves is not a problem. Yi Zhaogu frowned. Such an amateur performance made him even more disdainful. Just at that moment the other party suddenly took a step forward. When his foot touched the ground trembled and the dust around his feet quietly crumbled. The middle-aged man was speechless. If it was like that, then the other party's research on him was unexpectedly deep. Most importantly, he did not even put the other party in his eyes. The other party's amateur and clumsy performance made him even more disapproving. Tang Tian's old and new hatred surged in his heart and he said fiercely, "Just taking 2 pieces of trash from him is truly too easy on him. I want to beat him up like a dog." Dang. The sword in Yi Zhaoji's hand in an extremely small range quickly changed. Similarly, there were no fancy sword moves, but every sword was filled with power. Although Elder and had been building up momentum, trying to bring Jing Hao back into the honorable martial alliance, but the majority of the elders remained silent. Why not directly rob? The young man raised his eyebrows. With master's strength, it is enough to sweep this place. In a battle between saints, spirit techniques were the true main characters. The middle-aged man was startled. Under the watchful eyes of everyone thinking of taking the things and running away, this kind of shameless action as a master, do you have the face? Do you really have the face? Hey, surnamed Yi, I want to beat you up like a dog. Yi Zhaogu did not take advantage of the other party's distraction to make a move. He was a person with status and a prideful heart, he could not do such a thing. And now he was representing Elder Yu. If he did well, then Elder Yu would have face. If he performed badly, then Elder Yu's face would be greatly damaged. Yi Zhaogu suddenly pulled apart the distance, squinting his eyes again. There were still 5 moves left, it was enough. The fist collided with the sword, the dull sound of the collision, the surging energy swept past Yi Zhaoji's face. His expression was calm, his body slid back a few steps as though he was on ice. Onyx Soul's people? Compared to them, Yi Zhaogu was more favored by the honorable martial elders. Although the sword spirit was strong, but in the eyes of the honorable martial elders, it was only limited to this. Compared to the astonishing foundation and accumulation of the honorable martial alliance, just a mere sword spirit, what was it? Yi Zhaogu retracted his thoughts. Jing Hao was the opponent he was looking forward to the most. The spirit law inside this treasure deposit is not of a high grade and is more attractive to bronze saints. This time Rongbo, I think, is also helping Yi Zhaogu build up momentum. The middle-aged man spoke neither fast nor slow, but it seemed to have a sinister feeling. Jing Hao had cultivated out a sword spirit. This matter had caused a huge uproar in the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Sword saints were not mainstream in the Honorable Martial Alliance. In the Honorable Martial Alliance, the top-grade spirit techniques were not sword saints. In the history of the Honorable Martial Alliance, it was the first time a sword spirit had appeared. What made them feel even more awkward was that he was a traitor. You can't escape even with blink. Little Fool's childish voice interrupted Tang Tian's fantasies. He rolled his eyes in his heart as expected. This fellow looked like he was careless, stupid, but in truth he was a black-hearted and ruthless person. Little Fool, prepare to blink. Tang Tian said slyly. Comparing strength, he was not afraid of anyone. In the arena, Tang Tian was fighting with heaven and man. No, it was a battle between human and spirit. Tang Tian and Little Fool were connected mentally and did not need to speak at all. Suddenly, the other party roared. Yi Zhaogu jumped in shock. The other party suddenly became filled with killing intent, staring at him with bloodshot eyes. Yi Zhaogu was baffled, goading him? Really strange. The middle-aged man looked at the young man coldly. Tonggu, war is very cruel. This fellow can't be scared silly, right? The young man who spoke was barefooted with loose hair. His eyes were black and bright, giving people a strange feeling. He sighed lightly. I still want to see Yi Zhaoji's strength. I hope this fellow is not too weak. The tradition of the Honorable Martial Alliance was the light series spirit techniques. The Honorable Martial Alliance's top spirit techniques, the most core essence was light. Starting from the founder of the Honorable Martial Alliance, after every generation there would be geniuses in this domain, generation after generation persevering to perfect, forming a complete light series spirit technique. But master. The smile on Tong Ji's face disappeared. He sternly said, without experiencing the baptism of war, our martial artists will grow much slower than them. At that time, will we still be able to keep up with their pace? Yi Zhaogu was not complacent. He knew that there was another genius who was stronger than him, Jing Hao, who had cultivated a sword spirit. Yi Zhaogu suddenly woke up, unknowingly. Both parties had already continuously exchanged 15 moves. This kind of pure strength competition was indeed extremely satisfying. Could it be this was the opponent's strategy? So many saints. Furthermore, do you think that the Honorable Martial Alliance really has no way to deal with teleportation? Little Fool coldly said. The cold and childish feeling almost made him collapse. Was this a little baby in a fit of pique? But to prevent this fool from doing anything embarrassing in front of so many people, Little Fool still insisted. In front of so many people, if you can withstand 20 moves, these things will be yours. The Honorable Martial Alliance will definitely not go back on their word. Or, you don't even have the confidence to withstand 20 moves from Yi Zhaogu? His body lit up with a gentle white light. The white light was like water flowing along his body, wrapping around the sword in his hand. So within the Honorable Martial Alliance, martial artists who cultivated light series spirit techniques were regarded as orthodox. The man in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. He did not seem to have any imposing manner, and what he cultivated was the ancient and obsolete form spirit. Yi Zhaogu was somewhat uninterested. If not for Elder Yu's words, he would not even bother to take another look at this kind of trash. Yi Zhaogu was somewhat excited. It had been a long time since he met such a strong opponent. His own blood meridians were already very special, and in the process of being bestowed as a saint, his blood meridians also underwent changes. Dang dang dang. The proud little fool, how could he tolerate such a shameful action? Yi Zhaoji's pupils suddenly shrunk. The strength of this kick was so strong. Just at this moment, Elder Yu's brows were already frowning, indifferently saying, "Zhaogu, don't play anymore, finish the battle quickly." Little Fool rolled his eyes in his heart, but his mouth continued to fan the flames. You were beaten like a dog by him last time. Having a shadow in your heart, it is also understandable. The white light became increasingly bright. A vast and overbearing aura enveloped the entire area. In history, the disciples who left the Honorable Martial Group, although they dominated an area, but they always maintained a good relationship with the Honorable Martial Alliance. To the Honorable Martial Alliance, this kind of action was like spreading branches and leaves. But Jing Hao was different because Jing Hao had joined the enemy of the Honorable Martial Alliance. After being bestowed as a saint, Yi Zhaoji's temperament changed greatly. Like a wild beast's, craziness was even more restrained. Although his temperament was still grave and stern, but it was not so unapproachable. To many people, this was Yi Zhaoji's performance of becoming more mature. Actually, I feel that an all-out war is also pretty good. The young man said disapprovingly. Our onyx soul actually did not display our abilities in this war, so disappointing. Chapter 497. Am I really of no use at all? Suddenly Yi Zhaoji's face changed. The glimmer around him had actually disappeared. He suddenly raised his head, only to see the opponent smiling at him. No. There must be a way. His fist exploded, blood splattering everywhere. Even Tang Tian's zero-energy body was unable to withstand the surging star power. What a fool. His battle prowess would increase exponentially in this halo of light. Tong Gu, who was in the distance, was shocked. Yi Zhaogu actually trained in glimmer. He laughed. His face was innocent and simple. There was no change, only the purest energy, once again exploded when both parties clashed. Quick! Tang Tian urged. What he did not expect was the energy on Tang Tian's fist suddenly exploded. Asshole! The crowd was in an uproar. Even more people's faces changed. All of them looked at Yi Zhaogu with a trace of fear. Not everyone was familiar with spirit techniques, but there were definitely no saints who did not know of glimmer. Little fool. Furthermore, the crazy thought that surfaced in his mind made him tremble. It was too crazy. The entire place was dead silent. Everyone stared blankly at Tang Tian, whose fists were bleeding profusely. It was truly a beautiful yet dangerous spirit technique. Yi Zhaoji's eyes flashed with a cold light. The halo was his territory. The moment Tang Tian barged in, he had sensed it. Tang Tian licked his lips like a wild beast. Little fool, it's time. Yi Zhaoji's face changed. Bang! A leg quietly struck his back. The powerful force immediately caused him to fly out over 30 m, before stabilizing his body. This fist, the opponent's fist, was covered in white bones. It was obvious that his right arm no longer had any fighting strength. Go! When the light aura lit up, Tang Tian immediately felt an intense sense of danger. The sense of danger that was everywhere, even causing him to feel a suffocating hallucination. After stepping into the saint level, the Ursa Major star's umbrella in the saint's eyes was a whole different world. Although the Ursa Major star's umbrella did not contain any spirit techniques, but it contained the core source of the inheritance. The core source of Ursa Major constellation's inheritance was the stars. Not good. Little Fool made up his mind. An even more turbulent energy surged frantically towards Tang Tian's fist. After swallowing so many star rocks, the amount of energy in Little Fool's body was astonishing. Boom. Among the Honorable Martial Alliance's bronze-ranked light series of soul skills, the three most famous were Glimmer, Dawn, and Starlight. Glimmer was worthy of being the #1 spirit technique of the light bronze, and equally famous was its cultivation difficulty. Gu, who was caught off guard, involuntarily took 5 steps back. Only now did he notice the wild, beast-like madness in Tang Tian's eyes. This guy. The starry specks of dust continued to expand, and the surrounding saints' faces changed as they all retreated backwards. Sure enough, his opponent's left fist arrived on time. It was another explosion without any technique. The energy in his body already had a trace of heavy attribute, which was why he said that. Tang Tian's tone was filled with unquestionable authority. Little Fool wanted to tell him not to waste his energy, but his mouth opened, but he did not say anything. The surging energy was like a tide converging towards Tang Tian's fist. Another explosion. Tang Tian's left fist was also lacerated. Boom. Tang Tian did not feel anything. His crazy and passionate gaze stared at the glimmer of light not far away. Compared to him, Tang Tian's momentum was far too lacking. It was dim and without light. Impossible. He could even hear the crackling sound of his fist being crushed. This is the limit of your control. Little Fool said coldly, if you increase the energy, the power produced will cause harm to your body. Just as Little Fool was frustrated, Tang Tian's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. In that voice, there was no fear but instead some eagerness. Create. Create. Tang Tian was dazzled. This kind of unprecedented spirit technique opened his eyes. His heart was indescribably surprised. That rich light that was like flowing water, even the energy in the air could actually ignite. Any random person would be so strong. If he was controlling his body, he believed that he had enough power to deal with Gu, but his body was controlled by the Fool. Suicide attack? Gu frowned. This kind of attack was completely meaningless. Enemies on a narrow road was not just a saying. Maybe. The sword in his hand that was wrapped in light suddenly raised as if he had already expected it. He directly thrusted towards Tang Tian, who was rushing in front of him. Countless glimmers were stirred like needles. They entered his sword body. The sword light exploded. A wave of energy fluctuation was produced on his left side. Gu did not think. He waved his sword but missed. Tang Tian did not move. Once he entered the densely packed glimmer, he would become a moth flying into the fire. Another world had been created within the hazy and dreamy shimmering halo. Tang Tian felt his fist was being tightened bit by bit. Little Fool. Little Fool had awoken too late. He had not comprehended his own spirit technique. But it was not that he did not gain anything. That was the weight of the stars. Let's see what other tricks you have. Wait a minute. Tang Tian's figure suddenly disappeared. Teleportation. It exploded on his fist. Hey, it's been 20 moves. I'll kindly accept the item, thank you. Zzz, the ice plains beneath Yi Zhaoji's feet started to melt, evaporate. The dense fog danced in all directions. The figure that was enveloped by the light was faintly discernible. Onyx Soul and Honorable Martial Alliance had a long history of grievances. What did Glimmer represent? Within Onyx Soul, every saint that could train Glimmer was a highly vigilant target of Onyx Soul. In the history of Honorable Martial Alliance, every saint that could train Glimmer was a true strong martial artist. The difficulty of training Glimmer far surpassed the other 2 light spirit techniques. Even within the Honorable Martial Alliance, there were very few saints that immediately trained in Glimmer. Tang Tian's face was filled with unwillingness. He racked his brains, thinking of all the methods he could think of. The fog dissipated, and in the blurred glimmer, Gu, who was radiating boundless light, looked like a god of war. Do you know what Glimmer is? Almost everyone's gaze was attracted to Yi Zhaogu, the famous glimmer. It was their only chance to personally witness it, and no one was willing to shift their gaze away. Little Fool also did not expect Yi Zhaogu to be so ferocious. His face could not help but change. Little Fool who was in his body, his exquisite face was filled with shock. He was shocked by the fool's craziness. Yi Zhaogu actually trained glimmer. Even the middle-aged man's expression was moved. Only to see the multicolored light balls the size of sand grains, as though they were multicolored planets, revolving around Tang Tian's fists. Tang Tian did not know how powerful glimmer was, but how could he not know? Yi Zhaoji's degree of strength far exceeded his expectations. Even the momentum before activating was shockingly strong. Tang Tian's figure once again teleported. Yi Zhaogu, who had lost the glimmer circle, was obviously slower by a beat. Little Fool instinctively did not believe it. Even he had not thought of how to deal with Yi Zhaogu. How could this fool think of it? The stronger the spirit technique, the higher the requirement for the saint. If it was forcefully trained, the consequences would be devastating. Meridians could still be healed, but if the spirit domain was injured, then it was equivalent to being crippled. Saints were extremely difficult to level up. Every step was like walking on thin ice. They had to be extremely careful. If they were not careful, they would fall into a bottomless abyss. There was still one more move. The vast stars inside the Ursa Major star's umbrella revolved unceasingly. It was the best object to comprehend. Saints needed to comprehend their own spirit technique from inside. Little Fool. Onyx Soul actually did not obtain any relevant information. How could the two of them not be shocked? This meant another strong person had appeared in the Honorable Martial Alliance. Creation. Yes, creation itself was an extremely powerful force. Sigh. The explosive energy caused Tang Tian to feel uncomfortable. Even though he was a zero-energy body, his fist's flesh was lacerated, fresh blood flowed out. But he did not feel it, and another fist came out. The glimmer circle expanded to a distance of 15 m and then quietened down. The energy circulating around his fist transmitted an astonishing power. Tang Tian felt as though he was stuffed under countless of heavy objects, and was being ruthlessly crushed. Not enough more. Gather the energy in my hands, the more the better. Daring to train in glimmer was seen as a symbol of ambition by many honorable martial saints. In the air around Yi Zhaogu, countless of bright light spots floated. All of these light spots were as fine as dust, floating and sinking like a group of glowing plankton floating in the air. Tang Tian roared. He pounced forward. The energy in his right fist suddenly surged violently, and was actually much stronger than before. Idiot, although I do not know how to create, but I can destroy. A crazed look flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. How could he not feel the opponent's strength? But Yi Zhaogu, the last time he was beaten up so badly, how could he be beaten up again? Tang Tian continued. Tang Tian suddenly understood. Creation was the strongest point of the spirit domain. But his own spirit domain was a form spirit. If he wanted to create it, it would be Little Fool who did it. So could it be that he did not have any ideas? Glimmer. It's glimmer. A bit more. Yi Zhaogu retreated again. Slowly, a crazy idea formed in his mind. No problem, continue. I have already thought of how to deal with him. Tang Tian's tone was confident and excited. What I am destroying is the space created by your spirit domain. Yi Zhaoji's reaction was extremely fast. At the same time he was pushed back, he used the momentum to swing his sword. The surrounding glimmer was once again attracted. Entering the sword body, the sword aura once again increased explosively. In the past, Little Fool did not know anything about spirit domains, but the current Little Fool could already see the profoundness of Ursa Major star's umbrella. Until now, he then understood why Ursa Major constellation was able to become a tyrant in the ancient times that no one dared to look down on. During the martial artist era, Ursa Major star's umbrella was like a door to help martial artists step into the saint level. Tang Tian suddenly appeared inside the glimmer circle, causing everyone to exclaim. Compared to glimmer, although teleportation was not cheap, but it was not considered much. It was just that everyone had always felt that this unfamiliar fellow definitely did not have any strength to resist. Once teleportation appeared, everyone knew that they had underestimated this unremarkable fellow. A look of admiration flashed past Elder Yu's eyes. Yi Zhaoji's talent was truly astonishing. In such a short time he had already started to comprehend glimmer. That was the energy in the air being ignited. This was also the source of his confidence. Yi Zhaoji's attainments in Glimmer was just at the entry level, but it was already sufficient because it was Glimmer. But to barge into the Glimmer circle, wasn't that seeking death? That meant he still had one punch left. Why was he so unlucky recently? This matter was simply too shameful. Tang Tian laughed. Without dodging, he punched towards the sword light. The energy revolving around his fist suddenly combusted, but Yi Zhaogu had obviously underestimated the energy on Tang Tian's fist. A tyrannical and blazing world. Chapter 498. The matter of creation was left to Little Fool. I'm satisfied. Tang Tian raised his arms and shouted. Borrowing the change in the opponent's state of mind, he used teleportation to exert pressure, and the last attack was a small technique. He used the energy undulation to lure Yi Zhaogu, but in truth he used his legs to end the battle. This also shows that his form spirit is an expert in energy control. Tang Tian returned to the camp, went into the training room and said, Don't disturb me. The numerical value of the size of the spirit domain. Little Fool's childish voice sounded extremely cute. You can understand the spirit domain as a special space. The spirit value is the size of the space. The bigger the space, the more spirit techniques that can be trained. My spirit value is not high, only 10. The Saint Bone came at the right time. This person's strength is still lacking compared to Yi Zhaogu. Yi Zhaogu was too careless. If he had used Glimmer from the start, the result of the battle would be different. The mysterious man is very smart. He knows that comparing creativity, he is far from Yi Zhaoji's opponent, so he used another method, which is destruction. The difficulty of destruction is lower than creation, although in terms of realm the difference is huge, but in this stage of battle the difference is not that big. He succeeded, using a large amount of energy to directly detonate, thus destroying the opponent's Glimmer circle created by the spirit domain. The smile on Tong Ji's face disappeared, revealing a serious expression. He thought for a while. His expression became complicated. Not necessarily. The opponent is crazy and is good at using his own advantages. This kind of person is the hardest to deal with, and it is hard to guess what trump cards the opponent still has. The opponent's form spirit was not used at all. Now I have some suspicions whether he is holding back his strength. Although he mutilated his own hands, but I suspect that to him, it is very possible that it is a choice. That's right. Little Fool sat beside Tang Tian. He picked up the Saint Bone and started munching on it like he was eating biscuits. But he ate very slowly. His expression was very serious. But this kind of self-healing ability also needed to be replenished, and that was to eat a large amount of food. He and Little Fool were connected. When the Honorable Martial Alliance old man took out the Saint Bone, he felt Little Fool's emotions fluctuating. The middle-aged man did not comment. If you were to face him, do you have confidence? Today's battle had finally solved an extremely important problem for him, and that was which direction he should head in. I am Cancer. However, the heated discussion caused by this battle was far from over. Tang Tian took a big detour before returning to the camp. Tonggu nodded cautiously. I will be careful. Not only was his body unable to use energy to heal itself, but it was also extremely resistant to energy. Thus he had to consume large amounts of food to replenish his body. Fortunately, Tang Tian was already prepared. Ding Man and the rest's research on zero-energy books was rather comprehensive. That's right, destruction. Back in the day, Yi Zhaoji's immortal body was something that Tang Tian was jealous of. Tonggu smiled. Very professional, very clear explanation. Yi Zhaogu had comprehended Glimmer. His spirit value was at least 25. He had just stepped into the saint level and his spirit value was already so strong. It was already rather powerful. That means the other party is stronger. Suddenly, the silver rabbit ear-shaped necklace on Tang Tian's neck trembled slightly. It was Jingle. Little Fool floated in front of Tang Tian. Looking at the fool, he was somewhat silent. This battle was still lingering in his mind. To be honest, in terms of technique, this battle didn't seem too complicated to him. It was just that the courage and determination that the fool displayed in the battle had greatly impacted him. In terms of strength, the fool did not even have the slightest chance to struggle. But this fellow actually won. Your train of thought is not bad. The path of destruction is very suitable for you. The childish voice contained a lot of complicated emotions. Although Boss was powerful, but those saints were also very powerful. And that honorable martial alliance Onyx Soul, these big shots, boss must have gone to watch the show. Tang Tian ate crazily and at the same time, asked in a muffled voice. What's the use of saint bones? Tang Tian's hands were lacerated, revealing his white bones, which were dripping with unspeakable blood. Tang Tian opened his mouth, gasping in pain, but his face was shining with excitement. Aha, it's decided. The more Tang Tian thought about it, the more excited he became, but the pain from his hands made him shift his attention to the front. The injuries looked terrifying, but in truth, it was not as serious as he imagined. He was a zero-energy body and the injuries caused by energy were not big. Furthermore, his recovery ability was very strong. This news spread like wildfire in ancient Cold City. The commotion far exceeded Tang Tian's expectations. The appearance of Glimmer was already shocking. Yi Zhaoji's talent and strength was much stronger than what the rumors said. Compared to the mature bronze saints, Yi Zhaoji's spirit value was still very low, his comprehension of spirit techniques was still shallow, his attack methods were also very simple and had many weaknesses. Only Ding Chen noticed Tang Tian's return. Now as long as there was any movement, Ding Chen would notice if Tang Tian was there. So when he noticed Tang Tian's appearance in the camp, Ding Chen could not help but swallow his saliva. A brazen thought surfaced in his mind. Could the commotion just now be caused by boss? Little Fool remained silent. If it was him, would he be able to win? Little Fool felt that the possibility was very low. Just like at that time he was already thinking of escaping from the battle. Little Fool frowned. It's better than blink, but my spirit value is not enough. Letting the opponent control the rhythm of the battle, that is Yi Zhaoji's carelessness. Although there is a difference in their fighting strength, but Yi Zhaogu did not lose unjustly, the opponent's usage of tactics far exceeds his. Most importantly, the opponent's fighting intent was even more determined. To destroy Yi Zhaoji's glimmer circle, he did not hesitate to sacrifice his arms. This kind of courage is not something an ordinary person can possess. Furthermore, the opponent has an extremely tyrannical body. For such an intense explosion, the price he paid was only his arms being injured, it is obvious. Tong Gu did not refute and asked, will he really come? Tang Tian completely did not think that the sudden battle would cause such an uproar in ancient Cold City. It was another level of battle and there were still traces of ripples left in the air. Even these ripples, to martial artists who were not saints, made them feel uncomfortable. The appearance of Tang Tian and Yi Zhaogu during the battle swaggered onto the streets. His appearance caused a slight commotion. Tang Tian, who had just defeated Yi Zhaogu, was currently at the peak of his fame. What do you think? The middle-aged man asked Tong Gu. You will know in a while. The middle-aged man said. Increase spirit value. Little Fool's emotions had already calmed down. It can greatly increase my spirit value. He never thought that the fool would use such a method to end the battle. It's not that I don't have confidence. The middle-aged man shook his head. Although I do not know the opponent's background, but to be so brave and not care about his life, he should not be a disciple of any famous sect. Although spirit law is hard to obtain, but we can always find a way to obtain it. Little Fool, I will leave the defense to you, Io. This fellow's desire to win, has it reached such a stage? The martial artists in the camp were all trembling in fear. A battle between saints. The energy ripples were terrifying and martial artists below the saint level could not imagine it. The higher the spirit value, the better? Tang Tian was still engrossed in eating and asked without raising his head. He did not need to worry about getting injured and could gain more initiative in the battle. To a maniac like him, it was the best. His attacks could be even more daring. A saint who could defeat Yi Zhaogu was definitely not a nameless person, but the unfamiliar face and the form spirit that he had never seen before did not even leave a name and just flew away. Tang Tian immediately felt that he could not move an inch. The middle-aged man nodded his head. For you to be able to see all this, I am very happy. He is here for Sexton's eye. I have a feeling that he is not simple. The other powerhouses might be afraid of the honorable martial alliance, but for the 12 ecliptic palaces, they did not have so many concerns, and all extended their olive branches to Tang Tian. To be able to defeat Yi Zhaogu, who trained in Glimmer. Such a talent, wouldn't they be blind if they did not recruit him? The middle-aged man continued. I have checked. Sexton's Eye's treasure deposit should not be the top-grade treasure deposit. The spirit law inside, is only suitable for bronze saints. If you did not obtain it, don't be discouraged. This thought flashed past his mind. He laughed at his own nervousness. Could it be that the current storm was caused by boss saints' understanding of battles was much higher than ordinary people, and very quickly, there were professional explanations on the market. What is spirit value? Tang Tian wolfed down his food and continued to ask. Tang Tian liked the zero-energy body, although he could not use his martial techniques. But he did not need to worry about getting injured. As long as it was not a fatal injury, it would not be a big problem. Brother, may I know where you are from? I am from Libra constellation. As long as it is useful to you. Tang Tian said. What about the spirit technique card? Yizhao Gu, glimmer. 20 moves, defeated. The taste is not bad. Little fool licked his lips, a strange light aura flashing past his eyes. As expected of a saint bone, the spirit value has increased to 15. And there is still an imprint which requires some time to be undone. The imprints inside the saint bone are all good stuff. A few people were secretly following him, but were all shaken off by him using the sea of clouds. But even so, Yi Zhaoji's fighting strength was still astonishing, and was not something a normal saint could compare to. One big and one small figure sat side by side, using the same posture. Even their expressions when eating were strangely the same. A godlike young man should view offense as life. Peace. The spirit domain was little fool and was not under his control, since he could not create, then he would destroy. Other people would think that the realm of destruction was not high, but Tang Tian felt that it was nothing. He had to take it step by step. He was not an absolute genius. He would not even think about reaching the heavens in one step. To be able to be of use in battle, he was already very happy. Master has already lost confidence in your disciple? Tong Ge laughed. After a moment, Tang Tian laughed. Who knows, maybe we can sell it for a good price. As for himself, he specialized in being a destroyer. If he could destroy other people's spirit domain, then that would be powerful. Chapter 499. I don't know, but it sounds very powerful. Tang Tian shook his head honestly. Hearing Tang Tian's excited shouts, the waiter rolled his eyes again. He had already started to think how much of a failure he was to actually stay in such a rotten person's body. The waiter was dumbstruck. It can be like this. He then turned to Tang Tian and laughed. Little brother, don't be too nervous. I am after all an honorable martial clan elder. I have some face. I will not go back on my words. How about it, little brother? Little brother. Rong Bo sensed Tang Tian's passionate gaze. He did not believe that anyone could reject such an offer. But the current generation's martial arts system had developed to where it was today. There were many ways to refine spirit treasures, and the system was extremely huge. Rong Bo stared at Tang Tian for a long time, then suddenly laughed. Deal. Little brother really understands people's hearts. Respect, respect. But treating me like this, isn't it a little unfair? Tang Tian said as a matter of fact. Because you have a lot of money. Refining spirit treasures was also an extremely profound method. Every person's spirit domain was different, which also meant that every person's cauldron was different, and how to refine star treasures into spirit treasures was naturally different. Rong Bo's smile froze on his face. Then Elder Rong is here to drink tea? Elder Mu retorted sarcastically. The bright red umbrella handle was like coral, mottled with blood-red spots, like an angry lion. The blazing tyrannical Qi pounced forward. The entire restaurant's gaze was immediately attracted by the wait a minute. All of them turned to look behind Tang Tian. The restaurant quietened down. So that's it, I just met someone who does not know. No problem, as long as he knows the value of the saint spirit, he will definitely not reject it. Rong Bo's eyebrows relaxed. He laughed. This saint spirit is a spirit domain left behind by a saint. Its biggest use is to increase your spirit value. His saint bone can only increase your spirit value by 10 points. But the saint spirit, it can at least increase your spirit value by 50 points. Do you understand now? Only exchange, not sell. Tang Tian was very straightforward. Whatever star coins, we don't need to discuss. But now there was such a chance to obtain this precious spirit technique card. You don't even want 10 for 1? Rong Bo's face darkened. Elder Mu looked at Rong Bo in disbelief and said coldly, Are you crazy? How can Dawn be worth a saint's soul? The gazes of the people in the restaurant were firmly attracted by the two treasures. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't shift their gazes away. Suddenly, heavy breathing could be heard by several people. I like it very much, but you still have to add something. Tang Tian said with an unquestionable tone, I want the spirit treasure too. You're even willing to offer 10. That means it means more to you than 10. Tang Tian shook his head. I don't want to add 1 anymore. I want 3. In your opinion it's not worth it, but in my opinion it's worth it. Rongbo laughed and spread his hands. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just that I have a lot of money. Tang Tian was already admiring the spirit treasure in his hands. It was an exquisite little dagger axe, smaller than a palm, jet black and unadorned, shaped like a crow's beak. It did not have many decorations, it was completely natural. There were 2 small vermilion seal characters on the surface of the dagger, which read later hair. Quickly agree to his request. That's a good thing. The waiter shouted impatiently. Clan Elder Mu laughed out loud. His wanton laughter was like a knife cutting into Rongbo's heart. His gaze swept across the crowd and quickly found his target. He walked towards the table where the 2 of them were seated. More than 10 times. Rongbo said proudly. Regret? Hehe. Rongbo laughed. Clan Elder Mu is looking down on me. If I lose, what's the big deal? When I was young, I lost so much that I almost pawned my pants. Haha. I am here to stop my sex spirit technique cards from falling into the enemy's hands. Rongbo laughed at Tang Tian. Since even the Onyx Soul Clan Elder can bid, then as the Honorable Martial Clan Elder I should be able to bid too. A terrifying opponent. You've already bid 10 times, if you bid 1 more, what's wrong with that? Tang Tian said confidently, as though the other party owed him something. He was already prepared to run away the moment something went wrong. Just as Tang Tian was about to speak, a voice came out from behind him. Wait. The arrogant face of the waiter who was rolling his eyes immediately disappeared, and he screamed out crazily. Agree to his request. The waiter's childish voice sounded out in Tang Tian's heart, filled with determination and excitement. Tang Tian spent a lot of effort to push the passionate people away. He was extremely pleased, as expected of a godlike young lad. Wherever he went, he would be so eye-catching. Elder Rongbo laughed. Clan Elder Mu has spent a lot of money, so I cannot be too shabby. With just a few words, it was unknown how many people's hearts were stirred. Agree to his request. In the previous battle, the opponent had displayed an extremely strong control, and he felt that the opponent was not a good person. When Tang Tian, who was in the limelight, appeared in the restaurant, there was a short period of silence in the restaurant. Oh my. I only have one thing, a saint's spirit. Elder Rongbo slowly threw out a sentence. It was as if a bucket of ice water was poured over the heads of the greedy people. All their greed immediately disappeared. The 2 of them were actually the Onyx Soul Clan elders. Thinking about how they actually dared to place their ideas on the Onyx Soul Clan elders, their hearts trembled. The waiter heard Tang Tian's stomach full of grumbles, and could not help but roll his eyes. How could someone as noble as him mix with such a rotten person? So it's like that. Tang Tian was suddenly enlightened and confirmed, but you still want to add. As expected of a nouveau riche, he casually took out 2 things, and they were treasures. Little brother, do you think my honorable martial alliance is easy to bully? Rongbo said coldly. But Rongbo and Yi Zhaoji's appearance made Tang Tian's heart immediately become alert, his face full of caution. Were these 2 fellows trying to snatch the things back? Yes. Tong Gu happily replied. Tang Tian pointed to the umbrella handle and asked Rongbo, how much more is the value of the saint spirit compared to the umbrella handle? This umbrella handle is also not an ordinary item. In the ancient times before Leo constellation declined, a saint originally wanted to use the lion spear as the handle, the Libra bronze whip as the dragon bone, and the Scorpio bronze silk as the umbrella surface, to create a spirit treasure. Who knew this saint would meet with misfortune, and only left behind this umbrella handle that was refined from the Leo constellation's bronze spear. Although the bronze treasure is in its embryonic form, but after 20 years of refinement and nourishment by the spirit domain, the quality is extraordinary and cannot be sought after. Tang Tian laughed. Of course you can. The saint bone was as exquisite as porcelain, snow white like jade, and on top of it silver patterns could be faintly seen. The waiter was completely dumbstruck. He watched blankly as Rongbo took out another spirit treasure, and then left with Yi Zhaogu. Yi Zhaogu only looked at Tang Tian calmly. He did not have any anger. The other party's actions did not surprise him. Tang Tian laughed. Little fool, be good, watch me. Rongbo frowned unnoticeably. Do you know the use of saint spirits? Elder Mu's voice was filled with joy. To be able to see his archenemy eat a loss, there was nothing more joyous than that. It was actually Rongbo bringing Yi Zhaogu. Rongbo's face darkened. Little brother, a man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. It's better to know when to stop. Star treasures were born from constellations and naturally carried some fragments of laws. The star power gave birth to spirits. And below the saint level, the spirit treasures could only be used and could not be changed. Only after stepping into the saint level with the spirit domain would they be able to change their martial spirit cauldrons. In the quiet restaurant, Tang Tian's voice could be heard by the entire place. Everyone was shocked at first, but they soon revealed expressions of excitement. Only then did they remember that among the spoils of war of this person, there was Dawn. Tang Tian was not shocked by Rongbo but by Little Fool. Hey little fool, what's wrong with you? Tang Tian's eyes lit up. He looked at Rongbo with a passionate gaze. I like customers like you. Rongbo's back view, why did it make me feel like he was fleeing? Little Fool secretly shook his head. Impossible. The honorable martial clan elders are deep and unfathomable. Every one of them is an intelligent person. How could he flee? Elder Mu, who was at the side, said, he did not cheat you. This Koma dagger axe is not bad, it is a complete spirit treasure. Koma constellation star treasures, the strongest is hair like silk. There are many whip types and the quality is not bad. This bronze whip is the main body. If you break it into silk and penetrate it into Corvus constellation's crow dagger axe, it is a very complete spirit treasure. Coincidentally, you can use it now, my remnant, although the quality is better, but it is not something you can use in the short term. Tang Tian opened up his palm and 5 fingers. Add 5. How could anyone not be moved? The only thing that made people afraid was the Honorable Martial Alliance. Causing the Honorable Martial Alliance to be unhappy was not something anyone could bear. But in the crowd, there were naturally people who were not afraid of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Pay a high price. Pay a high price. Tong Gu smiled and took out 2 things. This saint bone is not something that old Yu's broken saint bone can compare to. This is the silver sword Saint Zhao Zhifei of the Aquarius constellation, the second segment of his right middle finger. When Zhao Zhifei was alive, he was known as the Sword Inquisitor. Inside this saint finger bone is his imprint. Other than that, it can also increase your form spirit by at least 10 points of spirit value. Onyx Soul Elder buying our Don. That is not too appropriate. Rongbo laughed like an amiable elder. Are you guys buying Dawn? Welcome. Tongji's body slightly leaned forward and bowed. And personally witnessing the negotiation, he was even more certain that the other party's schemes were deep and profound. The elder taking out the saint's spirit not only did not make the other party lose his composure, but instead the other party saw through his determination and pushed forward step by step. It was the first time Yi Zhaogu saw the elder being at a loss. The person's grasp of the human heart had already reached an unimaginable level. To Tang Tian, he was unfamiliar with all these. But, although he did not really understand, but it sounded very powerful and valiant. The star treasure was the embryo, the spirit domain was the furnace, it was the spirit treasure. Everyone knows of Onyx Soul's interest in the Honorable Martial Alliance. Use Dawn to research, maybe we can learn some light spirit techniques. The middle-aged man did not hide anything, raised his head and sneered. Could it be that great elder Rong is regretting? Dawn was also a masterpiece of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Among the bronze-level spirit technique cards, other than Glimmer, there was no other card that could surpass it. It was the peak existence of the bronze-level spirit technique cards. Who would not want such a spirit technique card? For a spirit technique card like Dawn, it was impossible for it to appear in the market. Even in the Honorable Martial Alliance, it was not something that anyone could get even if they wanted to. Tang Tian was surprised, so the 2 of them were from Onyx Soul. But he did not feel anything. Other people were fearful of Onyx Soul, but he did not feel anything, only sighing in his heart. Let's fight. Let's fight. Chapter 500. In the battle on the ground, they already held the absolute advantage. If the saints did not make a move, the battle would be even more tilted towards them. The saints in the sky were able to overlook the entire battlefield, and were even more clear about the situation. The creation of spirit books was not complicated. Using spirits as a medium, most of them were fragments of battle spirits. These fragments did not have much use, but were able to carry a large amount of information. Without thinking, Tang Tian extended his hand into the mist. Ancient Cold City's situation seemed to be in a delicate balance. Everyone seemed to have some sort of misgivings, regardless of whether it was Elder Mu or Elder Rongbo. No one dared to act recklessly. Instead, they could not compare to Yi Zhaogu when he was in Lupus constellation sweeping through everything, killing people as though they were grass. Tang Chou rejoiced in his heart. These saints were the more commonly seen type. He heard that Master trained in a spirit technique that allowed him to teleport. To Tang Chou, was there any other spirit technique that was more suitable for chaotic battles? Not only did training in spirit techniques require sufficient spirit value, but as one's understanding of spirit techniques deepened, spirit techniques would also continuously increase in rank, and would take up even more spirit value. If one did not have enough spirit value, it would be hard to even improve in spirit techniques. He is called William. Rongbo seemed to have thought of something happy and laughed out loud. He fiercely smashed into the crowd. After the continuous battles, although there were casualties, but everyone's tacit understanding had gradually increased. Failure is nothing. When I was young, I failed many times. Rongbo kept the smile on his face and became serious. You are not lacking in talent and hard work, and your current strength is much stronger than mine. You will definitely not be defeated so easily. The opponent is not simple, and I have a feeling that he is our enemy. Bing dared to follow Tang Tian to Sexton's constellation, because he had enough to rely on. These 4 armies were the source of his confidence. Maybe Flute had the potential to become a famous general in the future. The other 3 were impossible, but their standards were relatively outstanding, solid, and trustworthy. Tang Chou stared coldly at the saints in the sky. Yi Zhaoji's mind trembled. His face suddenly became pale white, his eyes revealing a look of shock. 200 roars converged into a torrent. In the Battle of Mizar City they had met with 2 saints. The saint who could not fly was quickly killed by them, while the other saint who could fly brought them a huge loss. Saints that could fly had a huge advantage in battle. They could come and go like the wind, and no one could catch up with them using light body techniques. This was something that Tang Chou did not expect. The saint's spirit's greatest use was to increase the spirit value and expand the spirit domain. In an instant, flesh and blood splattered in all directions, and countless shrill cries of terror and despair resounded in unison. Tang Tian did not know why, and he was too lazy to think about it. The saber lights weaved together and stabbed into the crowd. Blood spurted out, and a large space appeared in the densely packed crowd. Tang Chou's army held a clear advantage. After the Battle of Mizar City, although they had paid a considerable price, the bitter battle had greatly improved the soldiers. Can't hold it in any longer? Tang Chou's eyes turned cold. Other than the immense power of the spirit treasures and its many variations, its biggest advantage was that it did not take up any spirit value. To saints, every spirit value point was extremely precious. The 200 mechanical spirit weapons landed on the ground at the same time, like a heavy hammer, smashing into everyone's hearts. But the panicking Big Dipper martial artists did not notice the postures of the mechanical spirit weapons when they landed. The distance between both parties got closer and closer, and it looked like they were about to clash. Outside Alioth City, the intense battle continued. The distance between both parties got closer and closer. 300 m, 25 m, 60 m, 15 m. They did not meet the legendary terrifying existence that could detonate star rocks. The voice was filled with pain and anger, low and hoarse. It was a completely different person. The 200 mechanical spirit weapons once again landed on the ground at the same time, causing dust to fill the sky. This spirit book was not some high-quality goods, but some superficial saint general knowledge. It had to be said, the saint's items were never cheap. Such a general knowledge type spirit book was sold for 100 million star coins. The mechanical spirit weapons at the front retreated like a tide. The other party's cheers came out, and at the same time they attacked like a tide. Mozu's mechanical spirit weapon took the lead. Rushing towards his retreating comrades, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Number 5 tactic." The 200 mechanical spirit weapons that were sprinting with all their might soared into the sky at the same time. narrowly brushing past their comrades. They were like cannonballs that shot out, flying into the sky, bringing with them a terrifying power. They smashed down onto the ground. Pull back the front lines, Mozu. But he was not worried or afraid, but was instead filled with curiosity. These things were truly interesting. He took a big detour and returned to the camp. It could be said that he had returned with a bountiful harvest. The bountiful harvest far exceeded his imagination. Little Fool was devouring the saint spirits, while Tang Tian was eagerly reading the spirit books that he had bought. Every mechanical spirit weapon released 3 blades, 600 blade auras that were over 10 m long, interweaving into a blade net. To ordinary saints, there were some limitations. For example, true power. No matter what spirit technique was used, it would consume true power. And the true power in a saint's body was not limitless. To the current Tang Tian, it was what he needed the most. The running in between the armies was also completed. The martial artists of Big Dipper, in front of such a large army, were completely powerless. Yi Xiaogu was startled. He carefully recalled the details of the day and said, "Don't tell me, Master Yu." Spirit techniques were powerful and far from what martial techniques could compare to. In a short period of time, Tang Chou had lost over 50 men, causing him to be extremely furious. The Iron Fist army was mostly made up of mechanical martial artists from the bronze base of 3 Spirit City, including the batch of people that Tang Chou had groomed. Huang Fu Hong's previous army was a heavy armor army. In truth, it was half a mechanical army. Huang Fu Hong had always stayed in 3 Spirit City, learning from Bing while participating in the grooming and training of the various echelons, and was extremely experienced. Little Fool's body melted into a ball of mist, violently churning. Tang Tian jumped in fright. He was connected with Little Fool's mind, and could clearly feel the pain that Little Fool was in. Little Fool's adorable face twisted sinisterly at the moment. The mist churned as though there was a monster trying to break free from it. Its face kept changing. Bang. Po. Death row prisoners. Yi Xiaogu was startled again. The 4 black dots started to move. Rongbo laughed and said, "Xiaogu, you're still young, so you like to be direct when killing people. But you must remember, when you don't need to use a blade, try not to use a blade, especially when the situation is complicated." This saint was biased towards individual battles, so the threat to the army was limited, but this was already enough to cause Tang Chou to feel an immense pressure. He had many doubts and could obtain the answers from it. For example, he knew what a saint's spirit was. When a saint dies, they would usually not leave behind a martial spirit, because the saint's martial spirit had already transformed into a spirit domain. Only under special circumstances would a saint leave behind a martial spirit, and that was a saint's spirit. On both sides of him, 200 mechanical spirit weapons followed him and sprinted with all their might, the wind whistling past their ears. Everyone's breathing involuntarily became rough and heavy. They were all excited. The momentum of 200 mechanical spirit weapons charging at the same time was extremely satisfying. Their footsteps were dense and heavy, converging into one, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Other than Huang Fu Hong's Iron Fist army that was newly formed, the other 3 armies were still relatively intact, but were replenished with new blood. Needless to say, the 4 of them were strong. Tang Yi was forever the sharpest blade. Lu Di had the best view of the big picture, was young and had the highest achievements in the future. Ta Dun's personality was unyielding, his style was pragmatic, and his defense was extremely stable. And Huang Fu Hong was strict and meticulous, but in his heart he was a warmonger and liked to fight head-on. He bent his knees deeply and leaned forward. "Do not just believe your eyes." Rongbo laughed. "Is dawn really that important? No matter what, it is not even 1/20th of a saint's spirit. Other people think that I lost my mind to prevent it from landing in the hands of Onyx Soul. Actually, when I knew that you were defeated by him, I decided to get rid of him." The advantage of an army was their numbers. Ants could bite an elephant to death, but how to use their own advantage was the ability of a military leader. The frantically sprinting mechanical spirit weapons all roared in unison. He made a slashing motion with his hand. For the clan elder to be in such a difficult situation, he was most likely extremely depressed. But Tang Chou quickly found the saint's weakness, and that was his attack range. A saint's spirit to exchange for a potentially dangerous enemy, and still not attract any attention, it is worth it. Rongbo laughed. He was gentle and harmless. That saint's spirit was extracted from a death row prisoner's body. The 200 mechanical spirit weapons that had just landed were like 200 bronze balls, suddenly shooting out. Sinister ice-cold killing. Returning to his residence, Yi Xiaogu hesitated for a moment, then said, "Clan elder, should we?" The spirit domain was like a field owned by a saint, and the spirit techniques were like the crops planted on it. The bigger the field, the more crops could be planted. Huang Fu Hong's loud shout sounded out in the chaotic battlefield, causing Mozu to quiver. Yi Xiaoji's mind trembled. At that moment, Tang Tian finally understood how important spirit value was. This was a territory. Little Fool's face revealed a look of pain, his body trembling intensely. Not good. Little Fool's spirit value was just enough to train in blink. The opponent was unable to attack from a distance of 300 m. Finding this weakness, Tang Chou immediately responded. The army retracted and adjusted the distance between the various armies. Time seemed to have stopped at that moment. The Northern Dipper martial artists looked at the group of bronze monsters in fear. The meandering blood river beneath the bronze monsters, the scattered corpses, became the best footnotes for the bronze monsters. After reaching the saint level, there were many things that could not be described with words, and thus spirit books appeared. Spirit books were the main method of recording for saints. There was nothing better than continuous battles to train a military general. Tang Chou led 4 armies: Tang Yi's Lupus Army, Flute's Hunting Net Army, Ta Dun's Plateau Army, and Huang Fu Hong's Iron Fist Army. The martial artists that were rushing over like a tide completely did not expect that. They only felt the sky above them turning dark, and before they could react, a blazing light aura suddenly lit up, causing them to be unable to open their eyes. Kill. Mozu looked at Mo Wu Wei's mechanical spirit weapons that were retreating, and laughed maniacally. We still have to rely on ourselves to fight. The world after the saint level was much more vast and abundant than what Tang Tian had imagined. He suddenly had a feeling that he had entered a whole new world. There were too many new things that he did not understand. Bang! Tang Chou raised his head and looked at the 4 black dots in the sky. Mozu suddenly revealed a fierce look and roared, "Kill!" Chapter 501. Control the Rhythm. Every army was looking forward to the battle. Everyone knew that the focus of the battle was the saints. For this battle they had prepared for a long time. The light barrier shattered. Ta Dun spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. The martial artists around him all fell to the ground as though they had suffered a heavy blow. But on their faces there was no dispiritedness. Instead they opened their eyes wide, looking at the sky. Their mission was completed. The energy barrier was the most commonly used spirit technique by saints. It took up very little spirit value, consumed very little true power, and was extremely quick to activate. It was extremely practical. If the opponent was a saint, he would definitely not dare to be so careless, as his energy barrier standard could only be considered average. As for the martial artists, his expression was extremely calm. The might of a saint's attack was so terrifying. It was a crazy plan. Tang Chou had surprised everyone, and used the area below the King Kong Wall and above the army as a burial ground for saints. Saints hated the large-scale attacks of armies the most. The density of the attacks made dodging impossible, and they could only endure it. Flute did not dare to delay and immediately commanded the Hunting Net Army to attack. They actually did not break the tortoise shell. This was more encouraging than anything else. They then knew that saints could actually be killed. The previous saint was killed by the Lupus army, and the other 3 armies were extremely jealous. He suddenly sensed danger, and when he lowered his head he was shocked to realize the densely packed blade auras were like rain, quietly, like a group of sharks surging out of the water, shooting towards him. The current Plateau Army's King Kong Wall was much more mature than the 3 Whale Army. The densely packed sounds of explosions could be heard. At this time, no one dared to bet on whether the saints were dead or not. Everyone was frantically attacking, disregarding everything else. An astonishingly congealed blade aura appeared in front of him. The bright blade aura reflected his shock and disbelief. His body was split into 2 by the blade aura. The distance between the saints was quickly closing. The air was releasing a terrifying energy undulation. The might of the 4 saints charging at the same time was as though MT Tai was pressing down, causing people to suffocate. Without any warning, the light ball exploded. The huge light barrier was covered with golden scriptures. These light threads did not have any destructive power, but were extremely tough, and the crucial point was that it did not consume much true power, so every soldier could produce large amounts of true power threads. The only drawback was that it required a longer time to prepare. These words immediately roused everyone's spirits. A saint, a peerless expert who was sacred and unreachable to them, had actually become their goal. What else could make their blood boil more than this? Mozu clenched his teeth as he looked at the Lupus army that had just completed their assault. They were too cunning. He had seen the opportunity, but before he could make a move, Tang Yi had already completed his attack. The framework of the plateau army was still the same, but the internal structure had undergone a huge change, with even more high-leveled Cetus martial artists joining in. The blade auras of the spears and the various attacks of the mechanical spirit weapons were like raindrops, frantically entering the light net. And if he were to charge into the enemy's army, the enemy would instead be afraid to attack, and would not dare to use such a collective attack, and the powerful individual strength of a saint would also be able to be displayed more fully. Even death would be worth it. Even with the congealed King Kong wall, the might of the saint caused many people's faces to change. The saint did not expect the King Kong wall to be able to block his full-strength attack. In the attack he had used close to 70% of the true power in his body to create such a powerful attack. But what was that? He did not dare believe his own eyes. The attack just now could completely flatten a mountain peak and completely wipe out a city. Until now, with the Buddhist chant, it made the Cetus martial artists realize that they had underestimated their own commander. If it was just empty words, no one would believe it. But in Mizar City they had killed a saint. The military generals continued to encourage the soldiers, correcting their mistakes. The surviving martial artists of the 3 Cetus army had experienced the nightmarish battle of the Sword Tempest Cyclone. Their expressions were calm and composed, and the soldiers below were also influenced and quickly stabilized. The Plateau army had the most martial artists from Cetus constellation because it was originally the weakest. Andromeda constellation was only a northern sky-grade constellation, and the average standard of martial artists was already far below what Ursa Major constellation needed. This situation would continue for a few more years. The current star power concentration of Andromeda constellation was much higher than before, but the strength of the martial artists required time to accumulate. The experienced Ta Dun knew that the outcome of a battle was decided in an instant. A light ball with a diameter of 3 m floated in the air, as though it was already waiting for them. But out of all of them, he was also the military general with the longest military career and the most experience. On this point, even Huang Fuhong could not compare to him. King Kong. What was that sound? With the Iron Fist army as a barrier, the other 3 armies could focus on dealing with the 4 saints that were whistling towards them. The intense collision contained an astonishing power, which passed through the Plateau army, causing every single person in the Plateau army to tremble, their mouths and noses bleeding. Close to a third of the soldiers were struck and immediately flew out, crashing onto the ground, their faces pale white. Densely packed threads of light gushed out, completely enveloping the space within a radius of 500 feet. The 3 saints were completely enveloped by it. This was created by Flute, and was the most proficient tactic of the hunting net army, inescapable net. Damn it. Don't panic. Good, that's it. Well done. Whoosh. To be able to kill a saint, it was such an honor. The soldiers of the Plateau army were roused. His face changed, but he was daring. Although he was left with 30% of his true power, he was not flustered at all. An energy barrier immediately appeared in front of him. The energy barrier was smashed. 200 mechanical spirit weapons took turns to cover and retreat. Their speed was very slow, but no one in the crowd dared to move forward. One of the mechanical martial artists muttered. The King Kong wall revolved even more smoothly, the light aura converging. The golden scriptures changed from a dazzling gold to a deep dark gold. His pupils constricted. The martial artists of Cetus constellation had brought along King Kong wall, a tactic that was created because of Bing's poison war. To be able to last so long in Tang Tian's whirlpool sword storm proved its worth. Ta Dun was clear of his own standard. He was a middle-aged man and was pragmatic and did not have any unrealistic thoughts. Let me. The Plateau army lit up with a gigantic light barrier. Looking down from the sky, it was a gigantic light barrier, completely protecting the opponent's army. To attack the opponent, they had to break the turtle shell. The three saints had rich battle experience. Before the King Kong wall's light aura had dissipated, they quietly rushed down. These people are so cowardly. Everyone shouted in unison, King Kong. Bang bang. In the blink of an eye, the other three saints had already arrived. They noticed that the King Kong wall was on the verge of collapsing. As long as they attacked again, it would definitely shatter. Pay attention to your breathing. Pay attention to the output of true power. The opponent's blade aura struck the energy barrier. Bang bang bang. In the silence, Mozu glanced at the dumbstruck martial artists with disdain and said coldly, take turns to retreat and form a defensive line. Slow down a bit. Like a rumbling thunder, a fiery red figure, dragging a long fiery tail with a low and mournful scream, pounced towards the King Kong wall. Countless fiery flows revolved around him more and more as though there were 10 fiery snakes swimming around. The blazing light aura was like a sun exploding. He did not notice that he was too close to the light barrier, less than 60 m away. He was waiting for his comrade's second wave of attack. He believed that the second wave of attack would definitely shatter the turtle shell. Upright and plain-spoken without anger, this Buddhist chant was something he had specially consulted Master Magic Flute and spent countless of effort to master. He who had been in the army for a long time was very clear of his own shortcomings. He had always stayed in a small place like Andromeda constellation. His vision was small and he lacked understanding of higher powers. He was also old, and his future achievements would definitely not be as high as Magic Flute. The plateau army's martial artists all shivered. The mournful demonic sound that filled the sky seemed to have disappeared without a trace, and the distracting thoughts in their minds were cleared. The Cetus martial artists were all shocked. Lupus Army and Iron Fist Army were like two wild beasts that were accumulating power and moved at the same time. The light barrier suddenly lit up with a dazzling light aura. The thick fiery figure also attacked. But after a series of intense undulations, the light barrier actually stabilized. Bang. Not good. Looking at the fat meat that was right in front of their eyes being snatched away, that feeling was simply too terrible. As long as they barged into the army, they would be able to display their advantage in close combat. And in the middle of the enemy's troops, the enemy would not be able to use a large-scale attack. The moment the light barrier broke, 3 afterimages extremely quickly rushed down to the army below. Ta Dun was satisfied. The existence of the old soldiers was of great help to the army. The true power that was converging from all directions quickly became stable. How is that possible? In front of Cetus constellation, Andromeda constellation was just a countryside military general. What was there to be praised about? Bing's demands for military discipline had reached a strict level, and no one dared to brazenly cause trouble, but in their hearts, they were still somewhat unconvinced. And in their daily interactions, Ta Dun was a simple and persevering person. He valued their opinions and everyone gradually accepted him, since it was rare to see an army commander who would listen to the opinions of his subordinates. But this was only Ta Dun's character and not his abilities. The battle did not stop because of the death of a saint. Instead, it immediately became white-hot. But his reaction was extremely fast. Without hesitation, he once again activated the energy barrier. Ping, the energy barrier shattered again. He also saw the value of King Kong Wall. So in the internal department of the Plateau Army, he had invested a lot of effort into researching King Kong Wall. Tang Yi's battle sense was simply too sharp, and the heavy spear assault had become even stronger. Less than 30 m of distance, they could actually still charge forward with their blades and complete the heavy spear assault. They are just small fries. Mozu said, the saints are our true target. In terms of technique, the Buddhist chant was not very profound, but in such a situation, it was extremely ingenious and its use was extremely obvious. Ta Dun's eyes were wide open, his true power surged and his words were like thunder. A biting cold sword aura, a hammer aura, landed on the light barrier. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.